Sure.
Da, 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 da.
We are
I'm
live.
gonna have to. We are live. Good.
Now, being my first hangout, where do you see the comments? You have to go to the video on YouTube then for that?
Yes, that is what I do. I go to like wherever the hangout is going to be. Like in this case, it would be my channel, and I
Yeah,
go
gotcha.
to my. Okay, that's not what I anticipated. Okay, that's where's the live stream? What is this hot trash? Uh, it should be here.
I see it now.
Okay, there it is. I was like, where is it? And I just like hit the mute button.
Yeah, that's what I did too. Good, cool.
Yeah. So then that we don't hear ourselves
Yeah, gotcha.
and whatnot because we don't want that. Heaven forbid
Yeah,
that. No. Yeah. No. 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 No.
at least not a second or two delayed anyway.
Yeah. Well, because then that's just distracting and it bugs me.
Yeah,
It'll drive everybody insane, mainly me. But
I'm putting the.
okay.
I'm sure you're putting the call on Twitter as well, but I'm going ahead to do that as well too.
I have it on auto, so it does
Oh,
it
okay, cool.
automatically. I was just double
Gotcha.
checking, making sure that it did so. But yeah, okay, we are live. Hooray!
Nice. I've got a couple of people coming at some point, so that'll be good.
Yay! People are always good, and that's normally what I do. I just shoot the breeze for a few minutes or so and wait for some people to come in, and then we'll do whatever it is we're going to talk about. I don't know what we're talking about. We're just talking. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. That's what I'll go with. I mean, the title says comics and mythology, but
Oh, cool.
whatever you like to talk about. So
Sounds good. Well, I talk for a living, so I can do that.
this pretty much feels like what I do now too. I feel like I talk for a living,
Yeah.
but I don't make any money off of my living.
Oh man, it's hard. I've always wanted to maybe well eventually I'd like to do something like a Patreon and stuff, but I just can't see doing that until you've really got a large following. You know, it's always kind of pathetic when you see somebody with like, 100 followers say join my
Yeah.
Patreon, or
I
whatever.
mean, I considered it too, and I'm like, I don't know if I should ask at this point. I mean, I'm at 500 subs now. Maybe that would be
Yeah.
an appropriate time to ask, but then again, I'm like, I don't know. Hi,
My
Trip.
thing is too, I want to
How are you?
yeah.
Trip is in the chat, as always.
Oh, cool. Hi,
You
Trip.
like mythology? We all like mythology. Mythology is great. Who doesn't like mythology? Oh wait, people who don't read books.
Or people can watch movies and dig it.
I mean, that's normally how most of my mythology information comes from is through movies. I think the only mythology book I've ever actually legitimately read, and I know it was the more butchered variant of it, was Beowulf. And that's the only book that I'm aware of. Well, I mean, I've read a bunch of books like through school and whatnot, but that's the only one I can think of that's like, okay, this is definitely like a mythology story where, it's told repeatedly over several decades, and it changes every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And the epic was, how many? What was it that they said? I can't even remember the class.
What was it called again? The
Beowulf.
Beowulf. Okay. Are you
It was for
do
high school British literature.
you remember which translation you read?
No, it was in a textbook.
Okay.
So I don't remember.
Gotcha.
I don't know that information. I didn't ask when I was a teenager.
I'm sure,
But
yeah.
it was one of the more shortened versions of the story. It was like, I guess you would call it the abridged version of Beowulf. Probably what you would see in like a movie or something to that nature.
Yeah, it would have to be.
Considering that the teacher told me, I think the original source material was like took several days to recite.
Yeah.
It could take like a week.
Yeah.
To tell the whole story, and I'm like, dear freaking Lord, that's a lot of time. That is a
well. There have been some popular interpretations. The Irish poet Seamus Heaney was kind of the go-to for a while, but in just the past couple years, I forgot exactly when it was released. J.R.R. Tolkien's translation came out, so I still have yet to get my hands on that, but I'm pretty excited about grabbing that.
That might be an interesting way to read it.
Definitely
from basically the Godfather of fantasy and the Western world, basically. or at least
Exactly.
in many aspects, the one that everybody like basically rips off inspiration from when it comes to a fantasy story. It's like, let's rip off from
Pretty
Lord
much.
of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Pretty much, yeah. And of course, he was going after the Norse mythology and all of that, and German and stuff like that. But I do really appreciate. I teach in my class. I do this little tiny unit on Robert E. Howard because he was the creator of the Sword and Sorcery, and I think that was such a cool, different angle on the fantasy. It didn't really go for. I mean, you've got some of the same crossover beings and stuff like that, but it's a very different approach. It's more about the action. It's less about the mythos and such. It's more about the what are they doing and everything like that. So I really appreciate the sword and sorcery genre as a breath of fresh air into the overall genre.
Yeah. Tolkien, I know he loves his like information dump and he liked building the world and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate that because it's like, my dear Lord, that is insane, right? Writing your own dialects and languages. Basically describing everything that is in the world, like to like the most utmost detail. I'm like, that is an insane endeavor that I don't even think
every tree in the damn forest.
I don't even know if I could manage something that deep. I've written stories before, but I don't think I would ever go that deep. I'd like there to be at least a little bit of mystery and a little bit left to the imagination. Let someone else fill in the blanks.
Yeah, well, you have to. I think only Tolkien get away with it because he's Tolkien. But I see Omnitron is seeing how it introduced him to the Cthulhu mythos, and yeah, definitely Howard was best pen pal buddies with oh man, I'm blanking. The guy who started Cthulhu, Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft. They were both published in the same pulp and both admired each other. And Lovecraft didn't admire many people at all, so it was kind of cool to have them cross over a little bit mythology wise and everything.
The deepest people. You misspelled. Trip, you misspelled. And now I'm going to get on your case, but I'm kidding. I'm not, because I mistype everything, so I am completely fine. I cannot be a grammar Nazi. I am terrible at grammar. I am not allowed. Shame on you for even pretending to be able to spell properly without autocorrect.
I'm just glad I have a keyboard here and I'm not on my swipe phone keyboard.
Yeah, I think that's normally where most of the errors and whatnot come from, is when you're, well, actually, no, when I'm on my tablet, I actually spell things better. Because it autocorrects everything for me.
Oh, yeah.
My computer does not do that right now, so.
I make the mistake of trying to respond to messages and whatnot or posts when I first wake up. You grab your phone and you're so groggy-eyed, and that does never work out.
No. Or when it's really late at night, or when you're hammered. No, you never do that. Those are terrible ideas in general. It's like, why would you do that? That's a bad idea.
If Twitter could just do one thing for me, just add an edit function to the tweets like Facebook does.
That'd be nice.
It really would.
Facebook nowadays, it's like, it's a cesspool of stupid. Mainly, I follow just like family members and relatives, and now I barely even look on the page to see what's going on.
Man, I love following the Comicsgate stuff on Twitter. It's like a soap opera. It's just
it's the best soap opera currently going on in nerd culture.
It really is. I mean, I've posted videos on it, a couple here and there, but I don't go in for like, the actual conflicts or confrontations rather with the different creators or people on there. But man, every time Douglas Ernst or somebody posts a new video about this is what Tan Slott said to me today, I'm like, ooh, Days of Our Lives. Tune in.
Yeah, I've kind of gotten bored of doing that now. It's like for a while I was like, I will do nothing but do those types of videos. I'm like, you know what? I'm bored. Is there something else I can do? Is there something better I could be doing with my time?
Yeah.
It's why it's like, well, let's see. It's like, well, I don't even remember the last video I did that was fully comic book related.
That's right. Yeah, you've been doing a lot of anime stuff and video game stuff for a while.
Yeah, I was like, I'm taking a break. I'm done for a bit. Well, I mean, for a while, it's like, oh, I'm just so bored of this shit. I need a break from all the drama and the shit throwing. It's like, I need time. I need time to reflect, time to take a break. I was like, oh, wait, I have a convention coming up. I might as well go do that instead.
That was cool seeing
some of that stuff and just have fun. That
was neat. Your film diary of day to day. I like that.
Yeah, it was
Omnitron talking about how Conan got him into comics. That's awesome. So I guess you're talking about the Marvel comics. Is that right? Let's see. Mostly because, yeah, the movie was great. Yeah, I think the Marvel comics.
Yet.
You've never seen
I don't
the
know.
original Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
I think I may have seen parts of it when I was younger, but
Oh, it's a must.
yes, there are many musts that I have missed because
True.
my family was my mom was like pretty strict when it came to movies and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So like there were certain things that I couldn't watch yet. She let me watch RoboCop. I don't know what possessed her to allow me to
Really?
do that.
Oh, wow.
I think it was the TV version, so it was probably edited anyway. So I guess
Yeah.
it didn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, she wouldn't let me do that kind of stuff. Although, wait, no, I think there was one exception because my dad would watch John Wayne films, and there was at least one rated R John Wayne film that my dad had that I got to watch. Oh wait, no, there was two. Big Jake and True Grit. They're both rated R. Westerns.
Yeah, John Wayne's great.
They're still, I wouldn't even consider that to be rated R, except for that is just like more bloody and more of a mess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
More major. The shootouts weren't like, oh no, ow, I'm pretending I got shot with like no blood or anything. No,
Yeah.
this was like, oh my gosh, there's blood everywhere. Everyone is dying. This is terrible.
Yeah. I do want to say hi to Big Al real quick. He finally joined us and figured out how to come into the chat.
Hi, Big Al. First of the book and comics, mostly Marvel reprints, then the Dark Horse stuff, but it did ruin the Arnold Conan movies for me since I learned the major devastation from the source material.
Yeah, those deviations. The Dark Horse ones, I know they went through from the beginning of the mythos and kind of followed. They tried to sort of put Howard's short stories in some sort of chronological order, and then actually went through and embellished upon them. The Kurt Busiek, I think, started out with that, and those were fun. I still haven't gotten through all of them, but yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on that, Omnitron, if you like those as well as the Marvel stuff. But all good stuff. We seem to be kind of gravitating towards the big, heavy, macho, violent hero character type with the Conan and the John Wayne and stuff. Have you watched any of the Punisher yet?
Myself, no. Because I still haven't even watched the Defenders. I've either been occupied with other things, or I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna turn my Marvel brain off for a couple months and just not give a shit.
Yeah.
That's basically what I did. I was like, I don't want to watch it. Marvel pisses me off too much. It hurts my feelings. Like every single time I see something that's Marvel related, is Tom Report is our Lord and Savior. Of course he is. Of course he is. The guy who wants you to be pissed off at the comic book company because he thinks that's going to get you more readership. Good idea. Tom, please shine more lights of wisdom upon us on how to piss off the audience and make sure you can't sell any more books. Please, I insist. Both you, Dan, and Nick, I want you guys to have a literal hangout where all of you talk about how great Marvel is doing and how pissing off the audience actually is a great thing for the comic book industry. Please, I will not only join, I will give it 2 thumbs up of approval.
That's the biggest. Tom Brevoort and some of the things he said. I understand that as a editor or a writer or whatever, you can't please every single person.
Yeah.
But at least have the attitude of humility. I mean, understand who the fans are and say, look, I understand that, not everything we're doing is making everybody happy. We're doing the best we can. This is what we're doing with the characters right now. If it's not your taste, stick around. I'm sure it'll change eventually. That's the nature of, if you'd say something like that, I could at least not be angry with him personally, but to turn around and say, well, the medicine doesn't taste good, but you need it. Take it. I mean, that kind of stuff.
That's the worst mentality I've ever heard. It's like, imagine if somebody did that in, like, well, I read anime and manga and whatnot. And it's like, imagine if a manga writer or artist or anybody like that, it's like, you may not like this right now, but you're going to love it later. It's like, that's really unpleasant. Why would I want to agree to this? It's the stupidest mentality I've ever heard. It's like, I know you can't please everyone, and I don't really care to please everyone, but at the very least, you should be a little bit nicer and be like, you know what? Maybe this book isn't for you. Or I would be okay with that if I run into a comic book writer or any type of creator and just like, and I say, I don't really like how you're handling this situation or this book. I don't like it. And then it'd be like, okay, yeah, obviously. Then, maybe this book isn't for you, but, here's a list of other books that might interest you instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, give me an option, give me an alternative, and then maybe I will give you money. But if you don't give me an alternative, which is what Marvel's modus operandi seems to be, then I guess you don't get any of my money. If that's the case, then no.
Yeah.
You didn't
understand that.
I mean, they gave me some stuff. For a while, I was like, oh my gosh, this is some cool stuff that I actually enjoyed reading. But then a lot of the stupid, political pushing started happening. And I was like, okay, now you're just starting to lose me. And now I'm just angry. And I'm like, look, if you want to take shots at Donald Trump, be my guest. I don't care. But the moment that you start pushing it in the books and start hitting me over the head with it, that's when I'm going to turn off I'm going to lock my wallet away, and you're not going to get any of it.
Exactly.
I don't care.
Yeah.
If you're gonna talk politics, share the ideas and whatnot of like two sides. I mean, they did that in the first Civil War comic book. Granted, it leaned more heavily towards one side over the other, but at the beginning, it's like, oh, okay, I can see both sides of this actually making valid sense. And
yeah, I appreciated the way they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to share a political viewpoint or opinion, try and make it somewhere in the middle.
And there was really no decisive winner, ideologically, anyway. Yeah,
ideologically, no. Both ended up being terrible people.
But I do want to speak to. I've seen a couple of comments. People talking about the Punisher. So yeah, I know Big Al's. I think what did you say, like a 6 episode or 8 episode or something. I know he's been enjoying it. And Omnitron brought up that he's an anti-hero, not a hero, and I totally agree. I actually did just a video or two ago on my Professor Geek channel here on YouTube, talking about what an anti-hero does for our culture and why we do need them. I don't even like them all that much in just terms of taste wise. I don't like spending too much time with anti-heroes, but I'm really excited. I haven't started watching Punisher yet, just because catching up on Grading Papers and some of the other shows that I need to catch up on, but I'm really excited to start because Netflix seems to do those things well, and having them just sort of short and sweet, well done punches, for the most part anyway. And definitely excited to get that little dose of the anti-hero.
I don't know why, but I'm just not a fan of the Punisher in general. I just don't like the character. I like certain anti-heroes. I mean, characters like the Shadow and whatnot, or there's many other anti-heroes I could probably think of off the top of my head that are pretty fun or enjoyable to read. Like, I mean, Deadpool's an anti-hero. He's kind of fun to read or to watch. But I think the reason what really irritated me for the character is, I guess it was some of the more current books. It was like during Civil War and afterwards where I would see the character, hi Electric, how are you? Good to see you. Sorry, I needed to say hello. But the problem was that there's that scene where Punisher comes in and then guns down those supervillains that decided to join the anti-registration group, and I'm like, what a dick. This is just like, this isn't even, it's like, they're your allies. He didn't even give it a second thought. He didn't question it. He didn't think about it. He sees Cap talking to them. No, blow their heads off. Yeah. Is the first initial response. I'm like, is there a reason to your madness, or are you just an ass?
I agree. It did lead to an interesting character moment, though, because of course Cap is enraged by that, just cold-blooded murder right there under his protection. So he attacks Castle, and then he's like, "Aren't you going to fight back?" And the Punisher's like, "Never, never to you," because he looks up to Cap so much. And I thought that was just such a cool moment to.
That was probably the only part that I liked about it, and the rest was like, "Why, Frank? I know you're a vigilante. I know you're psycho, and I know you like killing criminals, but these were going to be your allies. They were going to help you." I know you don't like the idea, but could you put the gun down for like 10 minutes and just, maybe not blow heads off? And I
Yeah.
think there was another time I saw it in because one of my friends reads a lot of Ghost Rider comics, and he was showing me a couple of panels from a Ghost Rider book. And Punisher was, I think there was something happening, like heaven or hell was opening. There was like an earthquake, and crazy stuff happened. It was mild, but everybody, like a bunch of people felt it, and it had a panel with Frank in it, and like the criminal that I guess it was just a purse snatcher, just a basic purse snatcher, and the guy's like, "Did you feel that?" And he's like, "Nope," and just puts a bullet in him, and I'm like, the guy just stole a freaking purse. What is your damage? I know you're unstable, but what the frick is wrong with you?
It reminds me of that moment from that James Gunn film Super when he's just going around with his monkey wrench and shut up crime, and he's going after everybody, and somebody cuts in front of him in line at a movie theater. So he goes and changes clothes, and he comes back and just decks the guy in the forehead with a monkey wrench. He's like, "Don't cut in line."
Why? Why do you do that to me? I
do
mean,
want to mention.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say a couple of people commenting. I just don't want to miss the comments, but yeah. So Alice says, yeah, great performances in Punisher. I'm looking forward to that. Omnitron, brother from another mother, sir. You said that Superman's your favorite. Right there with you. He's my personal hero there. So I'm definitely on board with that. Sorry, I just didn't want to let too many go by before I said something about it.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
But yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
Punisher is crazy though. He's an unstable man. I see Omnitron's comment. You hate when people call Punisher crazy? Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but he kind of is.
Well, it's a delicate balance. I mean, he's certainly crazy to a mentality of somebody like like a Superman type character. But I mean, he's got his own. He's interesting because when he is written this way, he's got his own moral code. He's like for example, like in Daredevil 2. And he was there buying that. Oh, I forgot what it was. I think he was buying the special weapon, or I forgot what he was buying from that pawn shop. And he was on his way out, and the pawnbroker had nothing to go with him, nothing to do with him or whatever, nothing to do with the death of his family. But on his way out, the pawnbroker offers him kitty porn, and there's like to cross the line. And Punisher stops, locks the door and turns around, and it's time for justice.
Yeah.
So I like that he's got a little code, and he doesn't just act senselessly. He acts according to his code, however questionable that is.
I think his code is a bit questionable.
Oh well, yeah, it's anti-hero level questionable, of course. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking of like Red Hood and whatnot, but I prefer Red Hood because he may kind of be crazy, but he seems to be a lot more level-headed than Frank is.
Mm-hmm.
Because Frank just seems to be just a big crazy guy with a gun, or with a gun fetish, and is obsessed with murdering criminals. Whereas Jason, he actually likes manipulating and using criminals to his advantage. And actually, his code seems to be a bit more out in the open and a bit more clear cut. I think his code is no women and children.
Oh,
But anybody else's open game, apparently. It's like, but wait, what about if the woman is a criminal? Then what do you do?
Yeah.
That's my one. It's like, I think I found a loophole in his little code. It's like, what if the woman is a criminal? And a really bad one who like murders puppies in her spare time. It's like, then what do you do?
Yeah.
It's like, you don't kill them. So what are you going to do, Jason?
Yeah. Jason Todd's he's an interesting character. I haven't followed too much of his own Red Hood career just because I still haven't really made my peace with him being back. I mean, I do think he's an interesting character now, and I like when he's shows up in Detective Comics and stuff like that. But I haven't followed too much of like the Red Hood and the Outlaws and stuff.
Did you watch the animated feature?
Yes, I did, and I like that way they brought him back a lot better than what they did in the comics, because that made so much more sense to have Ra's al Ghul put him in the Lazarus Pit. In the comics, they did this stupid thing where it was like Superboy Prime was stuck in some sort of universal censure, and he was like punching his way out and like punching holes in reality or something, and that was just stupid, way too dumb to wrap my head around. And so the film fixed that, I thought, nicely.
Yeah. No, I do not think that the Shadow and Punisher are the same. They do deal with the scum of the earth, but they are not the same individuals. They are not. There is a big difference between the two. because the shadow actually, you know, he acquires contacts and friends. Well, not even friends. He basically, if the shadow saves your life, you are basically he owns you now. You are now his bitch, and you do what he says. There are no ifs, ands, or buts, or you get a bullet to the head.
Well,
the old Frank is the same.
You mean like, yeah, the old Pulp Fiction version of the Shadow? Yeah. I think that's what they drew on for the recent comic Batman crossovers too, right?
Yeah, he's you know, when people are saved by the Shadow, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Once you work for him, you work for him for life, and there's no getting out of it unless you want to die.
Yeah.
They showed that scene in the what was it? In the Shadow movie with who was it? Alec Baldwin? It was one of the Baldwin
brothers. Yeah, Alec Baldwin.
Where he saves that one doctor, and then the doctor says it's like, I should ask my wife first. He's like, no. He's like, you belong to me. First, he's like, you belong to me now. Your life now is mine. And all this other stuff. He's like, well, I guess I should talk to my wife about this. He's like, no. You don't get an option in this.
Yeah.
I am the beginning and end of you. You follow my lead.
Yeah.
Who's worse, the Punisher or Spectre?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that. That's a really interesting comparison.
With killing.
Well, because the Spectre is acting out divine justice.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to criticize God in that context.
Considering he basically is the god of death.
Yeah, he's the angel. Yeah, exacting angel of justice there and vengeance and such. And it's
he's basically DC's version of Ghost Rider.
Yeah,
pretty
basically.
Much.
I really did. You catch the briefly lived John Constantine series that was on CW?
I got to see, I think, the first episode.
They have them all on CW Seed right now. The website.
I know, and I haven't gotten back to it yet. But
they brought the
first episode was really good, and I was like, "Ooh, this is really good." And I liked the little homages to like other magical beings in the DC universe.
Yeah, well, they brought in the
Doctor. There was the Dr. Fate helmet in the first episode in his little
that's right
hiding shack, and the girl tries to touch it, and he's like, "Don't touch that." You don't want to know where that's been.
You think the Shadow enforces servitude?
The Shadow is an objectivist, yeah, and can't be really called an anti-hero. What are your thoughts on that? It's a good question.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I'd call the Shadow an anti-hero, but again, now I'm not a specialist on the Shadow. I know the film. I know the radio show probably best, and that wasn't that made some changes from the Pulp Fiction stuff. So I know, like, Orson Welles playing the Shadow. I listened to that on Sirius Radio Classics quite a bit. So that's really the only Shadow that I really know well, is that, and that guy on the radio for a more generalized audience was a little more upstanding and not quite as enforcing and stuff like that. It was a little more usual.
I think it depends on what, because there were several different versions of the Shadow in the radio format, so it depends on which. Well, not only different voice, they had different voice actors, and they had different ways of going about the story.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because I know that. Well, because I get most of my Shadow information from Razorfist channel. Because I'm not as well versed at it. Most of the stuff that I've learned from him. But I do remember watching the Shadow on radio because they did reruns in my area for years. They did like Lone Ranger, the Shadow, Green Hornet,
that's
stuff
awesome.
like that all the time. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. I like this stuff.
Yeah. I love listening to the old Superman radio shows. Those were so great.
But yeah, he's not really an anti-hero in that. And there's been several different ways, like he's not human. Is he human? No, he's not human. Because I remember I think on one of his videos, he showed a clip of one of the readings where someone is like peeking in at where the Shadow is like staring into a mirror. And, it describes like someone like taking their face off. The Shadow removing that humanoid face and like a skull remaining underneath. Because he's also part magic. He's not entirely just a gun-toting psycho, because he is immortal. He cannot be killed.
Yeah.
Much like the Spectre.
Yeah. That's interesting. The I just saw in the comments too. There, Lone Ranger is the Superman is to Shadow's Batman. That's a really interesting dichotomy there. I wonder what. And again, I'm not an expert on this character either, other than just the show that I watched. But the Green Hornet is supposed to be in the Pulp Fiction and in the radio and stuff like that. He's supposed to be the grandson of the Lone Ranger or the great grandson, something like that. So I wonder if they could do a team up or something like that in the comics, at least, where you'd have a Green Hornet who's perhaps a little bit more upstanding, like a Superman type at least, and then teaming up with the Shadow who'd be more of a Batman, kind of like a world's finest undercover or something. That might be interesting.
Yeah, in some aspects, the Green Hornet is actually more of a joke character.
Well, that film they did was that what's his name? That was awful.
Well, not only that, but in the TV show, they played him up more as kind of like not a buffoon or an idiot, but he was a bit more comedic. He's not like
I think
Batman.
they were probably.
He's not skilled because all the fighting was done by Bruce Lee instead. His character Kaito instead. He was more or less the detective, and Kaito was the muscle, which I thought.
I think they were going off of that theater of absurd though, because they were kind of spinning off of the Batman 66, or at least trying to pivot off of that or whatever. But yeah, you're right. It was a different portrayal. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I saw Rabbit's comment a little while ago, and he wanted to know what kind of myths were we thinking about talking about. I don't know. You can ask what kind of mythology you want to talk about, and we'll see if we know anything about it.
Well, maybe. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think that was pretty much it. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say I can start by saying that I do teach a college course on heroic archetypes, and it's a literature class, but we look at specifically it's an American lit class. So what I do is I look at archetypes of the heroes in American literature, and I look at the initial incarnations of them in a classic piece of literature, and then I kind of trace that through to their modern day comic book counterparts. So we'll start looking at the trickster, for example, in some Native American mythology tales, and then we'll carry that through to Spider-Man, of course, and how that's changed into the trickster superhero, and we'll look at the Hawkeye and the Last of the Mohicans, and then that's a frontiersman archetype. And I know everybody says, "Oh, Hawkeye and the Avengers," right? Like, no, he's not really a frontiersman. He's got the cool name, and it would be great symmetry there, but you really have to look more.
What would Green Arrow be then? Would he be Robin Hood?
Yeah, well, it depends on how he's written, because he's been written a couple of different ways. He could be that sort of socialist vigilante, and then sometimes they write him like that. Other times they write him as a Batman-like detective. He's kind of hard to pin down. It really depends on the writer for him, but that's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody always likes to draw the comparison between him and Robin Hood. That's one of the most favorite ones that everybody goes to.
Yeah.
But then there's probably other inspirations for him too, like probably a lot of those old Errol Flynn shows and whatnot, swashbuckling stuff and whatnot, because that's where he gets a lot of that humor and the one-liners and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I think the Rebirth comics right now in DC really are truly trying to tell him as a Robin Hood-like character, and that's such an interesting source of drama there too, because you have this rich white guy who's trying to crusade for the lesser fortunate, but then also dealing with the fact that he's all about the underprivileged and all about talking about that, and then he's got to deal with the fact that he is what he would call privileged, So it's fun to see him try and talk his way out of that, and just from a storytelling perspective.
Anya, yeah, you're right. The TV show for Green Hornet was played a bit more straighter than Batman's TV series. You are right.
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply it was the same level.
No, I think I was the one who implied that. But but that's probably because it's been a long time since I watched any Green Hornet stuff.
I know Big Al is it turned me on to MeTV that I would try to catch online or some places when I could. But yeah, MeTV was airing all kinds of reruns like that for a while, which was fun.
So Celtic mythology? I don't know a whole lot about Celtic mythology. The only Celtic mythology I know is from whatever I've learned from the Fate series. That's all you get out of me. Because they have at least a few Celtic characters that have Celtic mythology backgrounds. And that's about the extent of my knowledge on Celtic mythology. You wanted to ask me more about, like, King Arthur mythology. I think I'd be better equipped for that. And even then, I'm not.
I'm no expert on it, but I do know that we have like Banshee, for example, showing up in the DC universe, and she's drawing on
Oh, yeah.
Celtic mythology, and
Oh, yeah,
there's
that's right. I forgot
the
about
myth, the myth of the Selkie, I think I'm pronouncing it correct. That's the sort of a mermaid-like story that's fascinating. You've got the people who are skinwalkers. They live as seals and they can live as humans. And you've got stories of like the fisherman, for example, will see a
that.
beautiful woman lounging in the sun
Right.
on the beach naked or something, and he'll find her skin and hide it from her, and then she has to like stay with him and marry him or whatever until she finds her skin, and then she's gone forever again or whatever. That's an interesting myth.
Beowulf was actually written by the Anglos and the Saxons originally, not Celtic. At least I don't think. According to
No,
my
yeah, it
British
was.
literature, it started by the Anglos and the Saxons
Yeah, it was.
before the formation of Europe.
Yeah, and of course it was written down in sort of a Christianized manner by a lot of the monks who saved the story. To be fair.
Yeah. The story of Beowulf is fantastic, though. If anyone
Yeah.
for anyone who has never read it or at least seen like a film adaptation, I recommend doing so. Except for what was that current one? I cannot remember. The last one they did was goddamn terrible.
You mean the computer, the motion capture thing?
Yeah, that one. I hated that one. I
Oh,
watched
really?
it all. I did not. I mean, there were parts of it that worked.
Mhm.
And then there was the weird, I think it was the end that bothered me because he was the actual father of the dragon.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah,
if I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
correctly, he doesn't die in the end. And I was like, that's just stupid. That's
Yeah, they changed
idiotic.
a lot of
Why'd
things.
you do that? It hurts my head.
I remember they do change a lot of those things. I remember though, because I was in a this is not really Beowulf related, but it's Trojan War related. I was in a Greek art class that dealt with art and the stories, so the poetry and stuff like that of ancient Greece, mythology and such. And
Right.
the professor's this old guy. He's world renowned, in Greek art study and stuff like that. And he was talking about when they released the movie Troy with Brad Pitt and Orlando Bloom and such. And he started talking about he finally saw it, and he's like, and how could you can't have Agamemnon die? He needs to go back and be killed by his daughter and stuff, and or by Clytemnestra or whatever. And he was just going off, and I thought there is absolutely no difference between an academic and a comic book geek because he is just as impassioned and pissed off about this change they made in his story, as I would be, and some aberrational.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, adaptation is adaptation. Sometimes you gotta change some stuff or try and put your own spin on it, but at least try to keep to the core of the character.
Yeah.
I mean, when Omnitron was talking about Irish or Celtic mythology, because like I said, the only two things I can think of are the few characters that the Fate series mentions, because they took three characters that are of the Lancer class, and all three of them are from Celtic mythology.
Mhm.
And they're the three most popular characters from in that series, or three of the most popular characters. So they picked Dermot, who was... I like the story of Dermot, actually. I actually read parts of the story, at least from the Fate perspective, and because they sometimes follow it pretty closely. And then I checked it again. I was like, oh, okay, so they did kind of follow the mythology pretty closely, where he's this knight in service to a king, and then he's well renowned and well liked by everybody, and then but due to the fact that he has this charm on his face that is a curse mark that makes any woman that looks upon him to fall in love with him, he catches the eye of a princess that's supposed to be wed to the king or something to that nature, but instead of falling it for him, she sees Dermot, they fall in love, he runs, and then his story ends tragically with him dying in a boar hunt, I think.
Wow. Okay.
There's more to it than that, but I gave the abbreviated variant.
Yeah. No. Okay. I don't know much about that, so I haven't followed that series or anything.
Well, for someone who likes mythology and whatnot, it's something to at least consider watching. It can be fun.
Definitely.
I don't like the source material because it's a visual novel. So basically it's a dating simulator, and I'm not a fan of that, but I do like the shows, and I do enjoy their attempts at detail. Sounds very Arthurian. Does it? It probably
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're linked definitely.
Yeah.
There's even a no. I think it's actually Scottish mythology has a their own version of Arthur and his knights and everything, and the Knights of the Round Table and whatnot.
Mm,
But
I,
no, I was just looking Omnitron's Celtic idea of mankind descended from the god of death. That's
mm,
pretty interesting. That reminds me of a John Gardner novel called Freddy's Book,
hmm,
and it's this really interesting mythological story where these guys, these men, in a sort of a Anglo-Saxon-ish, maybe Celtic-ish. It's been so long since I read it. World, and they're doing battle with Satan, basically the devil, and
hmm,
they're about to kill him, and they're just about to like slit his throat. And in that final moment, the quote is, "In that moment, the devil repented of ever creating man."
hmm.
And then it
Interesting.
ends, and it's like, whoa, aside from being, scandalized, my Catholic self or whatever, it was just so
Hmm.
interesting from a storytelling and mythological perspective. I thought, wow, that's John Gardner. He was just a master at doing that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. Well, Rabbit is pointing out that they followed the mythology or the legend of Gilgamesh pretty much 100%, and that is accurate, except for his appearance in the show, which is
oh, on the show.
completely polar opposite to what he looks like in the stories, and the same for his. Oh, what was his name? I cannot remember Gilgamesh's companion, his friend.
Indiku.
Yeah,
In the mythology anyway. I haven't seen the
yeah.
series. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because in the mythology, he's what has the head of like a bull.
He's a wild man that the gods create to put Gilgamesh in check. I don't know if he had the head
Yeah,
of a bull in the mythology actually, in the Mesopotamian original, but yeah,
yeah.
I don't know about the series though. So,
Well, the series they they tweaked it. They followed the legend pretty much to a T, all the way to his inevitable death. The
mhm.
only things they change is one, the way he looks, because they got to make sure it looks like an anime, and he has to look
Mhm.
as pretty as humanly possible. Also, he likes to wear very shiny golden armor. No real reason, but he does. He
Yeah,
he the king of heroes, so he has to be shiny and show off
yeah.
a lot, which I actually do appreciate about the character. But um, and
Speaking of,
his
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and also his companion, instead of looking like a wild man or monster, looks like has the face of a woman who saved him,
Oh,
or the
interesting.
first human that he imprinted on
Huh.
when he was brought to Earth, I guess.
Okay. Well, it's interesting.
What were you going to say before I interrupted?
No, no, you were still going. I interrupted you, but no, I was just gonna say. Speaking of these kind of Arturian style legends and stuff, Big Al and I were talking the other day that we really need a new interpretation or adaptation of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. And I've been thinking like a film version, but I think a graphic novel version would be great. And I would love to see somebody like Neil Gaiman write that. But I'd like to know from the chat and who people think would be a good artist for that. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight styled adaptation of a graphic novel or such. A lot of great people out there would be good for that. But as long as we're talking mythology and Arthurian stuff,
Trip wanted me to go back up and read his previous comment. Here's something always hear about the Minotaur, but we never hear about the mother. Now she's a piece of work.
yeah,
Believe you me, Trip, I know the story behind the Minotaur. Believe you me, I know it. And yeah, bestiality is a thing. So yeah, I know who his mother is.
well, to be fair, she was
It was
manipulated by a god to fall in love with the bull, right? I mean,
Yeah, that it was Poseidon that did it because Poseidon was pissed. And that's
yeah,
normally the
yeah,
case with most Greek mythology. A god is pissed and they take vengeance in some sort of sadistic manner. The
yep,
Greek
yep.
gods are not friendly at all. They are not nice.
No,
They do not like people
no, no, no.
unless they're banging them, within which case it's completely fine.
yeah,
Then it's okay.
Mike Mignola. Mike Mignola, good call. He'd be a great artist for that, definitely. I'd love to
Um,
see somebody like Wrightson. What's his name? Gregory Wrightson.
I wish I knew who the artist was for one of the more. Oh, what was it? It was that current Black Knight run that only had 5 issues. Oh, I don't know who the artist was, but his art was really great. I probably would go with him if we wanted to do like another Arthurian story about what was it, Gawain?
Yeah, Sir Gawain the Green Knight. Yeah.
That guy would probably get my vote
Yeah.
for art.
Bernie writes and thinks so. Yeah, definitely.
She was a
Yeah.
sorceress? No. I don't think she
It's been so long since
was.
I read that. The Myth of the Minotaur. That's been a while since I looked at source material.
No, she was just she was married to what was the king's name? King Minos?
King Minos, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she was just a woman married to King Minos. That was it. There nothing much else to her that I'm aware of, unless they changed, or unless there's something more to her background that I'm unaware of.
Tim
I remember
Stowe.
watching. Oh, what was it? What was it? They used to do that one thing on History Channel where they would like go back and look at mythology and see if they could find evidence of something like that actually existing. Oh, I cannot remember the name of the series. It's gonna bug me now.
Is it In Search of type thing or?
Oh,
find labyrinths under what they think would have been the Minos area. They found these labyrinths with elaborate bull jumping paintings and stuff. And
I cannot remember. It was on History Channel.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers it, please fill me in because my mind is not working and I can't remember. But they covered like a bunch of Greek mythology, like Medusa, Hercules, Zeus.
Yeah.
A bunch of stuff like that. They also covered a couple of the other ones like King Arthur, Thor. And, you know, when people probably think of like Marvel's Thor and some of the silly things that happened to him, I was like, oh, now I know where Stan Lee got some of his more cockamamie and crazy ideas, like the idea to turn him into a frog.
Yeah.
Or him dressing up as a woman, because that was a thing. It actually happened in his mythology.
Yeah. It's interesting. Neil Gaiman just released, in the last couple of years, he released a compilation of Norse mythology where he doesn't try to embellish. He doesn't try to do his own Neil Gaimanized thing on it. He just takes some of the most popular stories and puts them in a more narrative form than they originally were written down in. And it's really cool. He's got some good highlights. It's just called Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. So recommend that. I do want to mention Rabbit talked about then along comes Zeus, the Hugh Hefner of Greek gods. And absolutely, like,
this totally is agree with
that. Yeah, and that's one thing that really ticks me off when sometimes they try and do this with Wonder Woman. She was originally created to have been molded from the dust by her mother Hippolyta, and then the goddesses breathed life into her. Now that's a beautiful turning on its head of the Garden of Eden story, which makes sense because the Wonder Woman story is all about let's let woman, or the matriarchy kind of thing idea happen. You know, so you don't have man created for her. So where Adam was molded out of dust by a god and then breathed life into him, here you have Wonder Woman born without a man's intervention, molded by her mother and breathed life by the goddesses. And then for whatever reason in the New 52, they decided, well, we'll just make her Zeus's daughter. And then, you know, they kind of play with that since then. I'm like, really? Wonder Woman, the epitome, the embodiment of compassion and all of this stuff. Let's get that guy Zeus who, you know, raped and ran around on Hera and did all that kind of, let's let him be your father now. It's just, you know, what? Have you guys read Greek mythology? You know?
Trip, you're gonna have to send me like a link to whatever information you're getting because I don't remember any of this covered in, at least in the History Channel thing when they covered the Minotaur. They did an entire episode covering the Minotaur.
Clash of the Gods. That's what Big Al just said. Was that what it was called? Clash of the Gods? Was that the series? It sounds familiar, but I don't know if it's the same one you're talking about.
Oh, it could be. That could be it. Al might have the right show.
Yeah, I remember that series too, but I can't remember if that's the same one that you're talking about or not.
It actually, I think it might be that. I mean, I could do a Google search right now, but I'm lazy.
Al's kind of like, you know, I can't think of a male counterpart to Oracle. He's usually like got his fingers in the webs. At some point, he'll find a bit of information if you need it.
Thank you, Al.
The calculator.
He is the calculator.
Yeah.
He is the calculator. He's calculating everything. Good. Um. I don't know. And now I've lost my train of thought.
Oh, that's
Congratulations,
good.
everybody.
I'm just going through some of the comments there. Yeah, it's interesting that New 52 Wonder Woman. It was such a different character, and they did even make her the god of war at one point. So you're talking about being descended from Ares. That yeah, she might as well have been. Yeah,
Yeah.
they did some a really cool reboot with the Rebirth comics, and they kind of made her realize that her life was a lie, and she was never the god of war and stuff like that. So they're still kind of working all that out. It's kind of interesting in the Rebirth, but yeah, Pattern of Paradise, beginning with the original statue clay. Later, yeah, exactly. And that's the way it was done in the Wonder Woman animated film. That was so great too. They kind of drew all the strains from the old origins together in a nice, concise way. Yeah,
yeah. I liked that Wonder Woman animated feature. It was good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. Good
For
stuff.
someone who's not that big into DC Comics, or at least my knowledge of it is a lot less than most.
Oh yeah,
it definitely helps.
What would you? I'd like to know. I mean, this is a huge question. So, but what is your
heavily weighed questions are my favorite.
Okay, what would you like to? Because I know that you're a huge Spider-Man fan.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to be done to save the character in the comics right now? Does he need a complete reboot, or what do you think should happen?
I'm sick of reboots.
Okay,
I am so tired of reboots. I don't want another Spider-Man reboot.
How would you fix CEO Spider-Man turned horrible businessman Spider-Man turned
now lazy
submissive boyfriend to Mockingbird?
Lay about slouch who wants to lay on his girlfriend's couch and not even bed with her, who is so pathetic that it's like you can't even bang the woman that you're dating. This is not the Spider-Man I am aware of. The man normally had a revolving door of women, and he made love to pretty much all of them that I can think of. Gwen, maybe not. I don't know about Gwen, but at the very least, I know Black Cat and I know Mary Jane. So it's like I know even before they were married, they did things. So I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, even when Dan started writing the character, he was sleeping with a woman pretty much almost on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
He had someone in his bed. At least in the first couple issues, it was a woman that he couldn't stand, but apparently they were drunk. Take that as you will. It's like Spider-Man can't handle his liquor, dear Lord. But oh my gosh, the one thing I'm always thinking is like, okay, everybody wants the marriage back, and right now I would settle for Peter just having a decent relationship with a character that actually means something. That's not someone's creepy fetish or creepy way of inserting someone that they love into a comic book. That's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Because Carly Cooper was inserted because of Joe Quesada.
Mm-hmm.
That was supposed to be an emulation of his daughter, I guess. And then you have Anna Marie, which is like, I know it was Slot Spider, or well, not Slot Spider. Sorry, that was a mistake. It's Spider Auto or Superior, but still, it's a relationship with Peter. Still counts. It's like, could we just have at least one relationship with during this run when he's not married, where I actually give a crap about the relationship? Could we bring Black Cat back? And,
oh yeah, that'd be great.
And actually have them play tag with one another for about an arc or two, so that I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, I absolutely hate that Mary Jane's like off working for Stark now and all of this nonsense.
Oh,
That's just
I hated that from the very beginning when it was announced. I'm like,
oh,
I know Dan's not using her. I get it. But it's like, yeah, sure. Why don't you have her bed with the Playboy who bangs anything that moves? Sure. Why the heck not?
That just felt like such a
end of disaster and catastrophe.
Yeah, awkward. That felt like such a slap in the face to Spider-Man fans who related to him on that sort of geek boy level, because he's kind of a nerd boy too, and him with Mary Jane was kind of such a win for like the nerd contingent, and then to have her just leave him for Iron Man was just like a what? That was just kind of a big slap in the face. But
Rabbit has a question. Here's a challenge for you, for the two of you. Are there any Western comic book characters that you can link to Nekomata? Who is Nekomata? It sounds Japanese.
I think that's a Japanese mythological being. Chinese, I think, actually.
Maybe. It could be Chinese. I don't know. Rabbit
Yeah,
does like himself
Chinese.
some Romance of the Three Kingdom. Neko Mata. That was wrong. That was not what I wanted to click. It actually it auto-filled it for me. I accidentally moved the mouse. Nekomata. What is Nekomata?
I'm just looking this up. They have eyes like a cat, large body like a dog. There are many who raise the question as to whether or not really is a monster of a cat. Is this the person or the thing you're talking about?
In China, they are told in stories even older in Japan. Told as mysterious cats, but in Japan, statement Nekomata kill several people in one night.
Two-tailed cat.
Two-tailed. So you're looking for a comic book equivalent?
Western, even?
Western comic book equivalent. No. I was trying. Oh, what was her name? The character who is cursed to look like a cat until she does a set amount of good deeds. What is her name? Cheetah? No.
Oh, you mean from like the DC villain Cheetah?
No, I was thinking of Marvel.
Oh, okay. Tigra?
Yeah, Tigra. There's her. Well, then of course there's Cheetah, I guess, and then Chitara.
Hellcat.
Yeah, Tigra. Well, Hellcat's not even an actual animal.
Yeah.
She's just a person who likes to look like a cat. Yeah, I would probably go with Tigra or Cheetah.
Okay.
That'd be the closest ones to Western that I can think of, anyway.
Oh, Western is in Western mythology. When he said Western, I was thinking
he said Western comic book characters.
I was thinking like Western, like cowboy, like the old Western comics, and I was like, man, that is one hell of a random question, but okay, sure.
It's like, here, let me look this up real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that makes more sense now. I got you. Yeah, Tiger sounds a good one.
I want to see strong male characters and female characters that look like women. They don't have to have huge assets to look female, but they should have some assets in Marvel. And that was pegged to me. I agree with that statement.
Absolutely.
I want my heroes to be manly enough that I can believe that they're men, and womanly enough that I'm not confused. And I get enough confusion from anime and manga on whether or not someone is a man or a woman. Okay? Because sometimes they draw people very androgynously, or they try and trick you and confuse your sex drive and make you question things. Mm-hmm. So, I would. Let's try and stick to that.
Yeah,
comic book artists.
Here's my take on that. Comic books are supposed to be mythology, and that's generally agreed on. They're cultural mythology. Well, mythology is all about types. It's not realist literature. If you want realism literature, I mean, you can be somewhat realism as like Marvel as opposed to DC. That's fine. The world outside your window, quote unquote, but it's still idealized and it's still typified. So if you look at mythology from the dawn of whatever age, women look like women. Men, and I mean that is that they're somewhat exaggerated. Now they don't have to be 90s comic book exaggerated, but they should have curves, and they should look like that historical symbolic woman, the symbolic mother or whatever. That's just the nature of mythology. It doesn't mean that the comic book creator is trying to say this is what all women should look like. It's just playing to that type that we all kind of, that symbology that we automatically respond to. So yeah, I agree with you guys, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's just certain things that they do. I mean, in Japan, that kind of stuff, I guess they just like messing with people and confusing them for some reason. Or, I mean, there's certain artists where, it's like, there's certain like genres and whatnot where it's like, okay, obviously this is tailored, for women or for young girls. So they make the boys incredibly attractive and not like the Fabio style attractive. They give them very delicate, very handsome looking faces for the girls to swoon over.
Attracted to that culture, like those standards.
Yeah, that type of standard. Because, well, I mean, in Japan, manly men are not a very common thing that you would see. Now that I think about it, especially when they're young, like considering every anime has to take place in a high school or whatever the case may be. Yeah, a lot of them don't look like that. They don't look they don't look overweight. Or they don't look like they're too muscular and well built.
Yeah.
But sadly, if we say we like women to look like women, we're objectifying women and are sexist, according to certain people on the other side of the comics gate fence.
Indeed. Try being in the academic world, trying to talk about mythological representations of women in the Amazons in a classroom. Oh my gosh, talk about shaky ground.
Oh, thank you, Trip, for pointing out. Yes, JoJo, the anime and manga series JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. They like having overly exaggerated muscles. I know that. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out because I forgot. Of course, what was that? Then there was that one older one, Fist of the North Star, which is, to many people, a bloody good time, where a man will punch you thousands of times in a flash of lightning, and then you explode because that's fun. and he's like a man. That's like the typical, what you would expect, like probably more Western creators to draw characters like, big, big muscular beefy guy,
Yeah, Bieberized.
Bieberized. Yep, that's actually fairly accurate.
I like Rabbit's comment there about the armor being designed to accentuate masculine or feminine features, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the boob armor, you gotta love the boob armor, but yeah, the crotch area being, they really had cod pieces and they had all kinds of silly stuff. But yeah, absolutely, that's
I mean, back in those days, you were lucky if anybody even wore armor at all. Some people ran around in the naked. I remember parts of the Celtic not mythology, but Celtic history. The reason why the Celtics managed to scare away the Romans was because they decided to fight in the middle of winter with literally nothing on. They just weapons and running in the battlefield butt-ass naked. Men and women. And it scared the crap out of the Romans and made them run. Like, funny. We cannot contend with these people. Painted blue. I don't know if they were painted blue. I hope they were. That's my hope. Although that might be a Scottish thing. I don't know if it's a Celtic thing.
Oh yeah, I don't know the delineations there. It's interesting though. The ancient Amazons, in all of the stories, of course, they were said to have removed one of their breasts to be better archers. Now, there's no scientific. You don't have to actually remove a breast to be a better archer as a woman. But that was, in story-wise, that was designed to show how they were against nature. It was a race of women without men. They would slay their, male children. So they were an abomination of nature, as all of the Greek different creatures were. The giants, the centaurs, and such.
Yeah.
But when it came to visually representing the Amazons, Greek ideals of art, of balance and contours and stuff like that, symmetry, refused to allow them to actually show a woman with one breast removed. So they would just draw them in this chiton, which exposed one breast instead. So go from that to boob armor is kind of the same thing, just culture to culture. Yeah.
If you could be a mythological creature, which one would you want to be?
Ooh.
Trip is asking a very interesting question. I don't know. I could be generic and say a dragon. But that could be any number of types of dragons I could end up being. I could be the type that just burns villages for the fun of it and kidnaps maidens for no bloody reason. Or I could be the intelligent one that brings wisdom and guidance to mankind. I think I prefer that one. I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the Fire Emblem fan in me, because that's what they're in that game series. Their gods are dragons.
Mm-hmm.
So they normally have a good dragon and a bad dragon. And in the main series, what was their names? With can't say dragon without entailed explanation.
Detailed explanation.
Detailed explanation? Dragons are cool. What else is there to say? It's a dragon. You get to breathe fire and fly, and you're pretty much invulnerable to everything. What else is there? People can't kill you. You can live for thousands of years.
I don't even know how I would answer that question. I don't know who I would want to be, but I can say who I'm probably most similar to. Probably a troll who guards a bridge. Because I don't like to go out of my home. I like to just stay in my little hovel, and I don't like when people come over. And so, yeah, the troll would be great. Get off my lawn, or get off my bridge, so to speak. Pay me money, and then you can pass, or whatever.
Okay, yeah, Trip just pointed them out. Grima and Naga are the two dragons from the main canon continuity from Fire Emblem. Naga is the god dragon that provides knowledge and has guided humanity. And Grima is the one that is the form of ultimate destruction.
Watch out for 3 goat brothers, yeah.
Dragons suck. Yeah. Gonzo, why would you say such a horrible thing? Praise Naga.
There's a question for you. Now, what superhero can you say best represents urban mythology?
What type of urban mythology are we talking about?
I don't know. Electric 1995's question there.
Are we talking about like modern urban mythology?
I would imagine.
We're talking about like Bigfoot, Mothman. That sort of
Bigfoot would be rural.
Huh? Oh yeah, that's true.
Bigfoot would be rural. Yeah.
Okay, let me read this question. What superhero can you best say represents urban mythology? I don't know. That's a good question.
More information, please. More parameters.
More elaboration. More elaboration on what. Give us some ideas of what you are referring to. So, I mean, are we talking about like creepypasta stuff like Slender Man? Or Jake the Killer, or random stuff like that? Are we talking about that? I want to know. Elaborate on your question and we'll get back to it. What species of dragon? Dragon, not lizard. I don't do the tongue thing.
That's a quote from Mulan.
It's my favorite one.
That's awesome.
I love that movie. It was a ton of fun.
A lot of people are saying Pegasus for that answer, and I can get that. I mean, yeah, to fly and to be renowned. At the same time, I just couldn't feel very manly. Not that I feel very manly on a daily basis anyway, but I just really couldn't feel very manly with the desire to be a winged horse.
I don't know. I would vote Deadpool on this question, with how he's all about that Urban Dictionary. This is fairly accurate. He is literally an Urban Dictionary.
Very true.
Once again, I'd be a giant. Why not?
Difficult to find seating at your favorite restaurant.
Just ask for the order to go. And just be on top of a beanstalk.
Uh-oh, someone's triggering you there.
Only easily taken down in movies and games. But that's in movies and games. And they're not always easily taken down. Okay, Gonzo, do me a huge favor. Go play Fire Emblem Awakening, play all the way to the final boss fight Grima, and then come back and tell me that they're easily taken down. I'll wait.
I've never played Fire Emblem.
I recommend it. It's a lot of fun, actually. They have their own mythology, and it's a good strategy game, actually. I enjoy it. I'm still relatively new to it. I've only ever completed one of them, but they are fun.
Weaponized Nerd Rage has these.
He is not easy. Not to mention, considering he gets to summon minions, he's not easy. I find offense to that. Of course, it could
Weaponized Nerd Rage has this series of videos where he talks about alternatives that are genre fiction done better than Marvel or whatever, and
Yeah,
he
yeah,
talked about
I like those.
yeah, he talked about the Witcher series, and I'd always heard about it, but his review kind of turned me onto it, so I checked it out and read the first story, a short story collection, and man, just amazing, even literary styling tales, and they're really fun genre stories, and just so many kind of retoolings of classic fairy tales or whatever. But I'm going through the books in
So
order to get to the
which
video
story?
games.
Which story?
The Last
The
Wish
Witcher.
was the first compilation. Yeah, The Witcher. But have you ever played the video
Um,
games? Because I'm trying to get to those.
no, I haven't played them. Although there is an interesting story of plagiarism from the people who've made The Witcher, considering that they kind of ripped off an older Pulp Fiction and novelization called Eldrick.
Huh. Okay, I hadn't heard that.
That's also available. Yeah, and they took a lot of inspiration and ideas straight from Witcher. Took a lot of it from Eldrick.
Interesting. Well, the whole thing's taking from classic mythology anyway. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I hadn't
Well,
heard
I
that. I
mean,
have to look
they
into that.
they just straight ripped off like the same character
Gotcha.
and ideas,
Gotcha.
but
Gotcha.
still at the same time, I mean, The Witcher is still a decent game. I've never played it myself.
Yeah, I'd like to look into it. I need to upgrade my console, but don't really spoil much for the. Oh, okay. So I could play the games now, not having read all the books.
Yeah,
That's cool. That's good to know.
you could do that. Most of video game adaptations are normally fine.
Yeah,
Start
I
with
went in today
Shadow
actually.
Dragon. Shadow Dragon isn't well. Shadow Dragon is nice. It's the remake of the first. Yeah, there it is. Elric of
Of
Melibone.
Melbourne. Okay. Okay. Huh.
That's the one. But Shadow Dragon, yes. That's a good remake, but I don't like the mechanic that I've heard about from that DS remake where they force you to kill characters in order to get better characters. I don't like that for a
Eek.
Fire Emblem game. That means I intentionally have to play the game terribly. And I don't like doing that. I mean, I make enough mistakes when I play Fire Emblem Awakening and Fates, where considering I play it on, easy mode where the characters don't stay permanently dead. So, and what was it? I've been playing Fire Emblem The Sacred Stone. I did that for the channel for a while, and I've done my best not to let any characters die. I actually play the game very cautiously.
I like games like that.
They force you
people
to
always talk about.
Sorry.
People always talk about how. Oh, go ahead.
I was just
No,
going to say
that's
basically how I look at the game. It's like it forces you to learn how to be better. It's like you screwed up. You let this character die. Go back and try again. Or you could just decide not to let the character survive and then be hampered by not having the appropriate characters later. It's like, yeah I don't want to do that. No thanks.
I know that us Superman fans have been crying out for a decent Superman video game for so long, and the argument they always give, I know that Rocksteady and everything has been saying, it's just too hard to make that a game because he's so powerful, and you can't be like Batman where you've got real threats and parameters. But that's just a real lack of imagination, because if you look at, for example, the Superman Returns video game that they did, you were penalized for allowing too much damage to happen to Metropolis. So that's a pretty cool limitation to be put on the character. You've got to take down these villains before too much collateral damage happens, and that's just that's actually pretty challenging. I have some difficulty with that, so it can definitely be done. I wish they'd make a good, decent Superman game.
Since we're kind of talking about video games and whatnot, what video game consoles do you currently have?
I have, well, the one I really play mostly is the PlayStation. I had a PS4 for a while, but ended up having to sell it. So I've got my PS3. I'm hoping to upgrade back to a PS4 this Christmas here. Okay. Maybe even Black Friday, if the fates are kind. But
do you have any do you have any Nintendo consoles?
I don't have any Nintendo consoles at the moment. I did grow up on Nintendo. I have a Xbox 360, but that's about the only other thing I have.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because Rabbit's recommending Fire Emblem 7 in the chat, and that was the first Fire Emblem game that was released stateside. And if you had like a Wii U, the Virtual Console has the 2 Game Boy Advance games that were
Oh,
released in
cool.
the States. So you could play Fire Emblem 7 or Fire Emblem 8, which is the one I was playing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll look into it. I mean, it's not beyond beyond me to get a Wii U, so it'd be fun.
It's probably going to be cheaper than buying a PS4.
Very true.
Considering that they're kind of out of not really making very many more of them.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. His idea here, Omnitron started Superman early in the career when he's still learning his powers, and by the end of it, you have a fully powered. That's a great idea because that's a typical trope in video games anyway. You gain abilities as you go along, so that's great.
That'd probably be the best way to handle a Superman game, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't get
to love
X-Men Origins Wolverine and Deadpool. They're both good games, actually. I've played both of them. Well, no, I haven't played both of them. I played a little bit of Wolverine Origin. I've seen people play the Deadpool game. Both are really fun. The Deadpool game is just off-the-wall slapstick hilarious. But the fourth wall breaking in it is fun, and also just the fun way in which he interacts with characters.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my favorite things that I saw someone do is like he gets to fly the Blackbird. He crashes the Blackbird, and he's with Psylocke, Rogue, and Wolverine. They're all passed out, and you can try and wake up Wolverine and slap him to try and wake him up, and then he just like goes off on a tangent. This is because the player keeps on pressing the A button, or or any random other thing like I'm doing this because I love you. It's like.
Yeah, I need to play that Deadpool one. I'm not a huge Deadpool fan in general. I like the character. I love that he's there in the universe and he's there for culture because he fulfills a unique role. But I don't really gravitate towards the smartasses too much. I can only take them in small doses,
Yeah, I think that game is best in smaller doses than all at once or in an entire session.
Yeah.
But I did like it because there's just some funny ways in which that he interacts with characters and whatnot.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think some of my favorite things he did was like when Cable is involved and he's interacting with Cable, or Cable's trying to like do this long exposition dump on him, and he's just sitting there, and he's like, "Make it stop, end it," and the game actually gives you the option to end it. And the way he ends it is to put a bullet through himself in the head.
Oh, nice.
Just like, I'm done. That's very funny. I like that.
Yeah, those characters, I mean, you need some metafiction. You need some fourth wall breaking now and then. It's
I think one of the first things he did was actually call the game developers.
Oh, really?
He sent them an idea for a Deadpool video game, and they denied him. And then he basically threatened them with explosives in order to make the game.
That's funny.
And I think the other one was that he actually contacted the voice actor who did his voice. Oh, I can't remember who did his voice. I think it might have been Nolan North, but I'm not sure. I don't remember who the voice actor was, but he calls him. So basically, he did a conversation where he talked to himself, which I thought was fun. Saint Row style. Saint Row style.
I wonder who Deadpool's... Yeah, I wonder who Deadpool's counterpart would. I haven't really thought of this one. Deadpool's counterpart in classic mythology, like Greek or Norse mythology, those kind of seminal archetypes. I did a video where it linked, and you can. These are all interchangeable, and you can do a ton of them. But I did a video where I said like 10 connections between Greek mythology and modern day superheroes. And I tried to do like 5 Marvel and 5 DC, and you can make arguments for different connections too. But I didn't even consider Deadpool. Definitely tricksterish. So I mean, maybe a Hermes type, but he's not really. I'd say more of a Pan type, maybe, possibly. I don't know.
Potentially.
He's such an evolution of character in his own right. There's never really been anything quite like him.
Yeah, not very many characters are quite like Deadpool.
Yeah. It's so cool that he started out as just a parody of Deathstroke and took on this whole new life of his own. That's really cool when characters do that.
If I was being honest, I would prefer Deathstroke because he's not nearly as annoying.
Yeah.
I like Deathstroke's character a bit more. Deadpool's kind of gotten to the point where it's like, okay, yay, more Deadpool.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I liked the Deadpool movie. I laughed. I cried. It was a lot of fun. but I don't know how much Deadpool I can handle in one sitting. Because after a while, it just gets old. I'm like, Deadpool, stop, just stop.
Yeah, I know some people, and I know some people are probably just gritting their teeth hearing that, and that's I know some people are huge fans, and that's fine. But yeah, I just can't take him but so much.
I mean,
need a little break.
For comic book wise, I actually read Deadpool before he was cool, before he was such a cultural icon. Currently, I was reading him like post Civil War. I was reading him when he was in a book where him and Cable had to share spotlight in time. It was still fun. The writer was fantastic. I loved the little segment at the beginning where Deadpool is a late night talk show host talking to like the villain of any given issue. That was fun.
That's funny, yeah.
I enjoyed that, but it's like
Mariana just said Loki. That's a good call there.
But we already have a Loki in the Marvel universe. Although he's
she was talking about the Norse Loki, like for a connection. But I did read from my I was doing those 31 Days of Halloween videos, and I'd looked at a Hawkeye Deadpool team up. And that was a lot of fun, actually. It was pretty cool. It took place around Halloween and stuff, so that was kind of cool. I like that. There's a scene where it's Halloween night, and Hawkeye and Deadpool have just had this fight in his apartment, and they're just they wore each other out, so they're sitting down on the floor just kind of panting, and that new girl Hawkeye comes in, and she's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? She's about to pull a gun, like, protect Clint, and he says, no, it's fine, that everything's good. And Deadpool has his mask off, and she looks at him, she's like, great mask, dude. And Hawkeye says he's Deadpool, that's his face. She said great Freddy Krueger mask, and he says that's Deadpool, it's his face. He's like, oh, sorry. And Deadpool looks really sad, and you're like, oh, that hurt his feelings. He's like, oh man, I should have been Freddy Krueger for Halloween. Never really truly offended, just always goes for the punchline. I like that.
I know that Rabbit said in the chat, hipster confirmed. I am not a hipster. I refuse that title immensely. I live in an area where hipster is second nature to almost everybody. So no, I am not a hipster. I don't grow the beard. I don't drink the fancy coffee. I don't have the weird clothing design or fashion sense. So no. I know he was kidding with me, but
what were you doing that was hipsters? I didn't follow the I didn't see all the comments.
Well, I think the hipster thing is to like hate things that are mainstream.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, okay.
Or yeah, hipster is to like, oh hey, I finally got to play Tetris for the first time. Tetris is the best game ever, though I've never actually ever played it.
You were into Deadpool before he was famous, so
yes, or at least I mean, it was after the Rob Liefeld era and whatnot, but. And things of that nature, but still, at the same time, I did like his character a little bit before then.
That new teaser trailer was pretty epic. Really great way to capture the fun, for the Deadpool 2.
It's because I said I liked him before he was cool.
Yeah.
But it's true. I liked him before he started saying random things like chimichanga and whatnot, and where people actually wrote intelligent comedic dialogue for his character. Well, although I would say that the movie did handle a lot of the comedy pretty well, so
yeah. I did like Colossus
for hipsters.
Only having a good Colossus from the X-Men.
Yeah,
that was fun.
I
only buy Submariner comics.
Yeah, definitely a hipster when you're only buying the Submariner. That would definitely be a hipster thing to do. Or Aquaman. Although the funny thing to do is to make fun of Aquaman at every given turn.
Yeah. Man, Aquaman is I don't have any. I know some people who are truly just have a great love for the character, and they can tell you about all of these great runs and all of these great titles and whatnot. And I'm not that person. I've never had a truly, great love for him or anything, but I've never been somebody who thought he was ridiculous necessarily either. But it's just so funny to look at a character. I've never seen so much overcompensating done, for a character and the different revamps and different retoolings they try and do here and there and stuff. And not every change has been an overcompensation, but you can really see it. I mean, as soon as they released the image of Aquabra, which is Jason Momoa, it was just like, oh man, seriously, dude.
You're trying real hard, aren't you?
I know.
I mean, I was okay with Jason Momoa. I like him. I think
I'd
he's
love to have seen
okay.
him as Lobo. I thought that was such a miscasting. Cast him as Lobo. He'd be epic, you know?
I think the problem is that he's not funny enough to be Lobo. That might be it.
Oh, maybe. I could
Maybe
see
he's
that.
not.
Or
He's
at
not
least some Mariner.
comedic. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, when I see that Aquaman, I think like 90s Aquaman, like
Okay.
from
The hook hand, the
like
water hand and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, like Justice League, and
Mhm.
also what he looked like in the comic books set for a portion of the 90s where he had the long hair, and either he had a
Yeah.
hook hand or he had a water hand because
Mhm.
someone took his hand.
Yeah. But there was
And I was
still a
like,
real.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Aquaman, but he was still Aquaman. He was still the legit
Yeah. And there
character.
was a real nobility to him as a king and everything, too. He wasn't
Yeah,
just, a beach bum,
yeah,
an Arctic beach bum.
an Arctic beach bum. Why would you think of doing that? It makes no sense.
Oh, who knows?
I don't know. I know you have different feelings towards DC's cinematic universe. For me, I watch it for fun. I don't know why I'm watching it still. Maybe it's like it's a car wreck and I can't look away.
I
Oh
can
wait, no,
understand that.
I kind of like it because I've always been a fan of alternate realities. So
Oh, yeah.
I kind of just look at it as an alternate reality. It's like I know this isn't the main source material
Mhm.
because I have the comic books for the main source material.
Yeah.
And I love the comic books far more so than the movies, and I love animated features far more than live action anyway. So it's like I have those to fall back on.
Yeah.
Those are the characters that I fell in love with. I just like to see what someone else might pull out of their hat and see what might come of it.
Yeah. It's been
Fails,
interesting.
fails, you know.
Yeah. It's been interesting for me coming into the Comicsgate, world or whatever. Just posting what little bit I've done on it and everything. But it's definitely a Marvel heavy world, and I do love Marvel, but I'm not anywhere near as versed in Marvel as most people in this movement are and stuff. I come from the DC stuff, so it's kind of a switch,
Yeah.
trying to.
Well, I mean, for a while, DC was just as bad as Marvel was for a
Yeah,
long
that new
time.
52 stuff and everything. Yeah.
Well, they even had their own political stuff that people nowadays, well, since we're so focused on Marvel, we're not even touching on because DC's, clean shop and is behaving themselves for the most part. They're not really
Yeah. Yeah.
ramming that type of stuff down everyone's throats currently.
Yeah.
But for a
It
while, they
creeps down a
were.
little bit here and there, but yeah,
Well, for a while, they were
definitely.
doing it just as bad, not as worse as Marvel, but just as bad.
Yeah.
They changed. They made a new Power Girl. They did all sorts of weird, stupid stuff that made no sense, aside from a lot
Mhm.
of the new 52 stuff. And it's like, why are you doing this? And some people, I think it's like you need to bash both when they do something incredibly stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Some of the
Equal
comments there.
opportunity bashing from me. It's like if I see something, the only reason why I give Green Arrow a pass for a lot of the stuff that some of the lingo and buzzwords they've used in the book is because it's like it's Green Arrow.
Yeah,
He's kind
that's what
of
he's
been
supposed to be.
he's
Yeah.
supposed to be like that. So
Yeah. Definitely.
I let it
Um.
slide because I expected. Although I did think it was kind of funny. More of the times it felt like they were just making fun of it opposed to actually taking it seriously. I was like,
Yeah.
I think it was, oh, what was it? I think Oliver was doing something and Dinah said he was mansplaining. And they made a joke out of it. And then they made
Oh,
out
okay.
later. I was like, okay, yeah, you guys are just poking fun at everybody now.
Yeah, that's good. I want to cut. Mariana has mentioned the Doomsday animated film, and yeah, that was the first Bruce Timm animated film that they did, and it was fun, and it did a good job. It told a good story. Now, it didn't. It had to cut a lot of stuff from that Death of Superman saga to fit it all in there. So
Yeah.
what they're actually doing now is they've released that they're making a two-part Death of Superman animated feature, and it's going to be a two-part that really includes all the stuff that was in that comic book
Does
saga.
does
So
that include the reign of the Superman?
I think so. I think so.
Because that would be interesting. Because I know that was the one part that they cut out.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
part where there were multiple different Superman or people claiming to be Superman.
yeah, yeah. They cut out all of that, but
Like no Eradicator, no
Metropolis
Superboy.
Kid.
No steel.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they had Cyborg Superman, kind of.
Sort of, yeah. Lex Luthor's creation, and it was cool bringing Luthor into the story like that. I think they wrote it well. It just wasn't the thing people were expecting, from the comics necessarily. So I don't hate the film at all, but it's cool. It'll be cool to see the new version.
Oh, Rabbit's comment from a while ago. Forgot to mention this, but since you both like mythology and comics, you should all read Record of Lotus War, The Grey Witch, and Chronicles of the Heroic Knight Saga. I think
I have not heard of any of those.
I think I still have that Grey Witch manga, Rabbit. I just haven't read it yet.
I
I
check
think
those
I
out. I'll
still
put those on my list.
yeah. Those might be fun.
I appreciate
There's a lot
recommendations.
of there's always fun mythology stuff that the Japanese enjoy. I think recently I had been watching the anime called Magi and the Labyrinth of Magic, I guess is what it's called. But that's like Arabian mythology. A lot of Arabian
Oh, cool.
ideas and things like magic carpets, jinns, and stuff of that nature. I was like, this is actually quite fun. It's quite enjoyable. And Sinbad is in it.
Oh, cool. That's So like Scheherazade and the whole Knights, the Arabian Nights and everything. That kind of
Things like
idea.
Alibaba, Aladdin.
Yeah, cool.
The two main characters are called Alibaba and Aladdin. So it's like,
if you could, after the thread or the stream, if you could email me or just remind me of the title of that, I'd really like to look that up. Actually,
what, Magi?
Yeah, Magi. Okay, if I forget it or whatever, I'll write it down. Actually,
it's Magi. That's it.
Oh, cool. That's not hard to remember.
There's both I mean, if you have Netflix, you could probably find it.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Although I will say this, you'll have to binge watch it now.
Oh, it's going away soon?
It leaves December 1st.
Okay.
At least the first season, because I started watching season 1 and then I saw a notice on Netflix says this will go away December 1st. I'm like, no, I haven't watched it yet. Darn it.
That'll be fun. I think The Runaways premiered too on Hulu today, the Marvel series.
Oh, I don't have Hulu, so I can't watch it.
Oh, gotcha.
It's
only a matter of time.
I would probably like to, but I can't right now. I'd probably buy it on DVD if it came out on DVD.
They're always offering free trials to check in on the series you like for a month and then cancel with no contract or whatever.
But I like when people take like mythology and whatnot. Oh, like the first anime series that I fell in love with was Dragon Ball Z, and they took a lot of their idea and mythology from the Monkey King story from Chinese mythology.
Oh, okay.
Especially when it was just called Dragon Ball, and it was just about a little kid with a monkey tail and a magic stick and a magic cloud who ran around and had adventures and caused people trouble.
Cool. Hey, speaking of mythological connections and stuff to comic book superheroes, do you know anything about, or have you checked into the Patriotica, that whole Kickstarter that guy? I actually ordered the comic. It hasn't come to me yet, but I'm dying to read it because I like that idea, the premise of Greek mythology meets the real world and stuff. And he's doing another one called Valkyrie, which is Roman or Norse mythology. So, do you know anything about it, or if it's good or not? Or
I didn't read it, and I didn't back it because I don't have money, sadly. It's also the reason why I haven't bought your book either, because I'm broke most of the time. I can't afford it.
I'll send you a copy, and you can just mention it a lot or whatever. We'll call it even.
Okay. I'd appreciate that. Please send me a review copy, and hopefully it's not too long, because normal novels bore me a lot of the time, and I have trouble finishing.
Well, this isn't a novel. It's actually a sort of a self-help kind of book, so you can read just a chapter at a time whenever you want. It just deals with the different superhero story and how you can draw inspiration to your life from that story or whatever. Yeah. So you can take it at your own pace. But yeah, no, just remind me to put your address in the Twitter feed or direct message or whatever again, and I'll
do that. I'll do that. Yes.
Which of the 12 common archetypes best describes Iron Man? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say yes. Professor Geek has a book. Go to his channel. There's a link to his book. Go check out the book.
Yeah, or you can just go to michaelkreitzer.com. Or just look up Heroic Inspirations on Amazon. It's on Amazon in
Yep.
digital and hard copies. So,
Yep.
but someone just asked what would be a good archetype for Iron Man, and that's an interesting question. In the
Does
video that
drunk
I
count?
Does drunk count? Bacchus, right? In the video that I did, I said he's basically Hephaestus
Oh
because
yeah.
he's the blacksmith type, who makes weapons for the gods. He makes weapons for the other heroes, and he's Hephaestus was lame and had a deformity at least and wasn't like the other gods, but Iron Man has that heart condition with the stuff in his chest and everything. So at least in the stories
Yeah.
mostly. So yeah, I thought it was a great Hephaestus. There was even some of that imagery too in the first film, and in the comic books, there've been that, of course, quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that's
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 cool.
one answer to the question. I'm sure you can think of others as well.
I'm gonna go with drunk. That's my answer. Archetype is drunk.
Who is it? Dionysus, the guy that took Dionysus in, who's always like Dionysus. At least is seen doing other things besides just drinking. But there is
Are we talking about the god of parties?
yeah, the god of alcohol and drunken debauchery and everything, Dionysus. But there
So
was when he was
basically, he that would be another archetype that would basically fit Tony. He'd actually be a mix of both Hephaestus and Dionysus.
something
Now that
like
you
that.
think about it, considering that he's a playboy, he
Yeah,
drinks
yeah.
drinks a lot, or at least used to, and he beds with multiple women on a regular basis.
Has his
So
main.
yeah, I guess in a sense he'd be a combination of both. He'd be a combination of Hephaestus and Dionysus. I like this. I like where this is going because this is actually what I would think he would be like kind of a culmination of the two.
Yeah, yeah.
Considering they took ideas from multiple things. My brother is back home.
I like this. Omnitron, would you agree that despite being Norse-based, Thor and Asgardians are more like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table? That's a great point. I think that there's definitely a lot of overlay, even if it's not specifically Knights in the Round Table. There's definitely this sort of Shakespearean-ish. But you're right. Such ideas of worthiness. So yeah, I mean that does come straight from Arthur and the Round Table. That's a really cool point. Yeah, so I guess the Marvelized version of that would definitely be a more of a modern Western understanding that you could easily trace back to Arthur easier than you could the real Norse tales or whatever. So, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
I like to think about that more.
that's fair actually. I
Yeah,
kind of agree with that.
yeah.
Although, what was it? There's also a King Arthur mythology in Marvel too, because he existed. Because that's
Oh,
where
uh-huh.
Black Knight comes from,
Yeah, yeah.
where
Okay.
the Ebony Blade comes from. But yeah, there's probably a lot of overlap. I mean, they have Greek mythology and Greek gods too in their universe too. There's Ares and a bunch of others, I'm sure. Zeus. Though they don't touch on them very much. They focus more on Norse gods
Yeah,
than they do Greek or any other types of gods.
yeah. Now, those are specific types of archetypes that you're talking about there, Mariana, the ego and the soul and stuff like that. That gets into a was that, was it Freudian or was it, yeah, that's so, I mean, archetypes can be more general. I mean, archetypes is sort of a generalized term. You can apply it to a lot of different ways, but yeah, the 12 common archetypes, soulcraft and such, that's a very specific type of archetype chart. So yeah, I didn't know you were talking about those, the ego types and such, but yeah, that's more of a personality psychological kind of thing. When I talk about archetypes, you can mean that, but I'm even more generalized too, and just sort of I come at it from a storytelling perspective. So uh, character types more that you would see in mythology and stuff. And you have your trickster, you might have your cuckold, you might have your, all those kind of types of stuff. Yeah. So it's kind of a plastic word. You can, expand it to use it in different contexts. Probably should have been more specific. Hephaestus.
Heffen. Who is that? Is that a god?
Hephaestus, you mean, Al?
That could be Hephaestus.
Was maybe
Could be.
yeah, I think, yeah.
He may have just misspelled it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, since because recently on Netflix they started showing the new Fate series called Fate Apocrypha, and I've noticed that they added a whole bunch of legendary characters or individuals from mythology and history,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to remember the name, so someone might have to help me with this. Uh, the archer from one team is a centaur who trained heroes. I'm trying to remember his name.
Oh, Philocles or whatever, the guy who trained
They didn't call him that.
Heracles.
No, he trained because if you're thinking Philoctetes from the Disney
Phil
thing,
Philoctetes, yeah, yeah,
he was a satyr, not a centaur.
That's right, idiot. Yeah, okay.
I was thinking
Sorry, brain
Cryon.
fart mistake. Yeah, you're right.
Cryon. That was the guy I was thinking. Cryon. Yes, that was him. Because they added Cryon and they had because they've been trying to like have characters from opposite sides who have like similar histories and backgrounds or were related. So they had Cryon, who's the archer on one team, and then they had on the red team they had Achilles. And I thought that
Oh,
was kind
cool.
of a fun idea to have them fight each other. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Although Cryon likes to take the form of a human instead of a
Yeah,
centaur. But mainly probably because he doesn't want to like scare people too much.
yeah. I need to check out that show. I've got it down on my list here to check out on Netflix. I finally have some.
Yeah.
Yeah, I finally have some time this break, so I can do that.
Yeah, because currently they have three of the shows on there. So they have Fate Zero, which was supposed to be a prequel to Fate Stay Night. And they have the Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, and now Fate Apocrypha. That one's a little bit harder for me to follow and enjoy because there's too many characters. It's like there's not enough time for everybody to get their moments and time to shine, especially for the legendary heroes. It's like, oh, come on, I want to see everybody, spending some time actually getting to know them on a more personal level and learn their legends and whatnot instead. And I'm like, oh, there's just too many of you to contend with right now.
Yeah,
there's not enough time for them to be focused on any given, although it's only like the first 12 episodes and there's probably going to be another 13 later. So
yeah,
hopefully other characters will get their time, but they'll probably fix it itself in time. Maybe. Quite honestly, I was just happy to see Siegfried. He has become my new favorite character from the Fate series.
And what is he? What's his?
The mythology of Siegfried.
Oh, you mean the mythological character? Okay, I thought you were just like a character.
It's this. He's the one from mythology.
Okay, cool. That's really cool.
The guy who killed the evil dragon and was bathed in its blood and became invincible. Yeah, it's him.
Okay. I didn't know they were that direct in the series, and they really just pulled from that. That's really cool.
They do get pretty direct when it comes to certain characters in mythology. The one thing they do is they normally will, for some reason, they like to switch genders of characters because considering the main focal point is that it's...
Is that like a Marvel property?
If only. No, wait, no. If that was the case, the men would look like women and the women would look like men.
There you go.
But I enjoy it because they do make variations and changes, but they do try and find interesting ways to include characters or history into their universe. A couple of them that I can think of that are kind of interesting, especially for Fate Apocrypha, was that they included Jack the Ripper, who has no identity.
Huh.
And the Jack the Ripper in the show is a little girl. It's not a man.
Wow.
Who's known as a serial killer. It's a little girl who's a murderous psychopathic serial killer. And then I was like, wait, at first when I heard that, it didn't make any sense. And then I saw someone's video kind of explaining it. And they took the idea... Song Lola when what? Okay. Oh, anyway, I lost my train of thought. But they explained it as in the lower end of London, where a lot of the Jack the Ripper killings happened. I guess it was called the
Hmm.
White District back then.
Hmm.
But there was, massive amounts of prostitution and abortions. So the way they explained it is that Jack is the personification of all of the abortions that were caused
Oh wow,
during
that's
that time
interesting.
period. And I was like, wait, oh, that's even more
That's
dark and
fascinating.
disturbing. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like Jack
fascinating.
could have ended up, and they said that Jack, when summoned, could have ended up like anything. Could have
Huh.
been a young boy, could have been a young girl. It doesn't matter. That's an interesting way of perceiving it. It's like that means that the creators actually did some research and said, okay, we're not going to go with the prototypical Jack the Ripper. We're
Hmm.
going to do something different.
Yeah,
That's an interesting way of going about it.
it is cool.
Men being women and women being men.
Yeah, no, if you can have a good reason for it like that, that is fun. That's an interesting twist. I really want to check that out. Omnitron was asking about Rick Riordan, and yeah, I've read a couple of his Percy Jackson in the Olympians books, and I thought that was fun. I thought it was a great way to take that. I've got on deck though his Gods of Asgard series, the Magnus Chase. I have yet to start that book, but I've got it in my stack here. I'm really excited to get going. What do you recommend by his? Are you a fan? I guess since you're asking about it, or
Well, I'm
Nightwolf?
not. I'd never read any of the Percy Jackson books.
Kind of like a Harry Potter style, but it's with Greek
Yeah,
mythology.
yeah.
Is kind of a neat
I
take.
know what it is. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I've never
Yeah,
been a massively huge fan of it.
yeah.
For me, I don't know. Maybe it's because I like more Japanese mythology and the mythology for like Arthurian mythology or the time of knights and whatnot. I have more fun in those areas, but I do
Mhm.
like Greek mythology too. Greek can be fun.
Greek is kind of my main area, and then Norse, but a little bit of Native American mythology too is fun. But yeah, I mean, any mythology is always fun. I'm always fascinated to hear you talk about
Undying
the
evil
Japanese
that
and
could
stuff.
possess various people.
Egyptian
Ah,
Chronicles. Oh, cool,
I,
Egyptian gods. Nice.
well, I was trying to read Anya's comment. She mentioned something about classic Star Trek postulated that Jack the Ripper was an undying evil that could possess various people, so it was still living at the time frame and couldn't be pinned down to one person.
Cool.
Yeah, that's also a good way of looking at it too.
I love classic Trek. That original series. Hard to beat.
I think I actually watched another science
Whitechapel.
fiction. Oh wait, no, I think they did a episode of X Files in a similar fashion too,
Okay, cool.
where they like linked Jack the Ripper, the killer, to some sort of parasitic creature or something that basically made people kill people.
Hmm.
Egyptian gods. Okay.
Yeah, Big Al's a classic Trek. He would know the episode titles there.
Whitechapel.
He probably know the X Files episode title you're talking about too. I don't know, but that's really cool. Jack the Ripper stuff there. I don't know why Jack the Ripper has stuck out in mythology, in history, and everything is such a important character. I mean, I guess it's obvious. It's horrific and everything, but there've been so many more horrific serial killers since then. I think it just has to do with the setting, perhaps being in
Yeah.
Victorian London and proper and all that kind of stuff. Even though he's walking around those poor districts with all the prostitutes and
Yeah.
stuff, just so much can be drawn on. Of course, there's the great story, the novel and the book about H.G. Wells going back.
Mm.
I'm brain farting on that. What is the name of that movie? I just met the author, Time After Time. Yeah, I
Mm.
just met the author at a con. Really
I,
cool. The
uh,
Star Trek author guy. Yeah.
I find it fun to look. I think that's what the Fate series has done to me is it makes me want to actually learn more about certain historical figures and characters that I don't remember or don't know that much about.
Hmm.
It it tickles my fancy because I didn't know anything about the Celtic characters like Dermot or Cuchulainn
Hmm.
until that series. It's like I didn't know they existed. And it's like, or that they had Bluebeard, or they've had other individuals like Frankenstein's monster, which is not a mythological thing. Well, it is. It's from literature.
Yeah. No, that's cool though.
But it's like, oh, they added Frankenstein. Interesting. And they pretty much took the same story, only Frankenstein is a lady. But I
Yeah.
guess that would still work. It doesn't really matter. Frankenstein could be one or the other.
Well, there was the Bride of Frankenstein even in the original book that he tried to make. So
Well, it was what in the original story, it was that that's what Frankenstein wanted and why he chased his creator.
yeah.
The monster wanted a mate. It was the one
Yeah.
thing that it asked. And that's what they touch on in the show, too. It's the same thing. It's just the roles are reversed.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jack the Ripper was just an alias for a lady who was jilted from her partner that was busy messing around with loose women and took revenge too far.
That is a theory I've heard. Yeah, some
That could
historians
be.
have that theory. Yeah, and plus it's the perfect alibi because even today people find it hard to believe that a woman could do such a horrid crime. And back then, of course, it would have just been unthinkable. So she could have just had her time and no one would have suspected her. So that's an interesting theory. I don't know. I haven't looked into the evidence much of it, but I just like the character and how he keeps showing up in folklore. Yep. I really like that show. Speaking of mythology, there's a briefly lived show called Sanctuary. It was on Sci-Fi Channel, and it had Amanda Tapping. It was her show after Stargate, and she was an immortal, and she had this organization called Sanctuary that was out there to protect mythological beings and stuff like that. And
I think I vaguely remember that, but I don't think I ever watched it.
Her jilted lover was Jack the Ripper. He had the ability to teleport, which is why they never caught him. That was cool. They brought in the Invisible Man. They brought in Sherlock. They brought all these cool literary characters, but drawing on mythological archetypes too, the mermaids and stuff, and the vampires and whatever. That was a really fun show. I definitely recommend it to anybody interested. I don't even know where you'd find it now, but it was good.
It's pronounced Frankenstein. 10 points if you get the reference.
Yeah. Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. Yes.
Yeah, the young
everybody knows Young Frankenstein, and if you don't, you are doing yourself a disservice. Go watch it now. Go watch Mel Brooks films.
Just for the roll in the hay, if nothing else.
Watch that. They're just fun.
Yeah,
I've always enjoyed them.
That was actually the this is not really anything to do with mythology, but just a bit of useless trivia. Young Frankenstein was the reason why Walk This Way by Aerosmith was written. They had written the music that day, and they went to see Young Frankenstein that night, and they cracked up at that joke that Igor says when he's like, "Walk this way," and then Gene Wilder walks with the hunch or whatever. They thought that was so funny, and they told Steve Tyler that the name of the song has to be "Walk This Way." You've got to make it happen, and apparently that was done. Cultural mythology, right?
Yeah, or what's the other word for it? Pop culture references?
Pop culture reference, yeah, there you go.
I guess that would be the other one.
Sure.
I guess the
old man pop culture references.
I guess that can work. I still would consider that just a pop culture reference, basically, if that was their idea originally for writing the song Walk This Way. I would say, hey, that's still kind of a pop culture kind of referencey thing to do.
Sure, that works.
They wanted to cut that scene out?
Wow, I couldn't believe that.
Have you ever seen the Mel Brooks film Silent Movie?
I don't think I've seen that one, no.
I didn't know it existed either, but my brother rented it once from the local video store. I was like, what? Mel Brooks did a silent film? You're kidding me. You're joking. And he's like, no, he did. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to watch this. And I watched it. It was hilarious. And it is literally a silent film with only one difference. There is at least only one scene where someone actually talks. And it was the funniest thing I had ever seen. It was, he was at the time the most well-known mime currently. And they asked him to be in the film and he said no. I was like, perfect.
This is the mime speak. That's great.
While everyone else is not speaking and doing the whole silent movie dialogue where, they're, mouths moving and then you see what they say.
Yeah.
And they calling him to ask. And then he's like, no. Thanks.
Oh, you made me laugh.
Yeah. Marcel, I cannot pronounce that last name. I think he was French.
Marceau. Huh?
Yeah. Spaceballs, yes. Blazing Saddle, Robin Hood Men in Tights. All
It's
good
not.
films.
It's not very. It's not always mentioned in the favorites, but I still love Dracula Dead and loving it. If
I
nothing
don't
else,
think
just
I've ever
because.
seen that one yet. I think that was one that I
Yeah,
missed, but
Amy Yasbeck, the
uh,
incredibly hot redhead. Gotta love that.
I think I think he did what, a young Sherlock Holmes one too. I
Did
think
he do that? I don't know.
I can't remember, but there was also what was I'm trying to think of ones that maybe I haven't seen or ones that I have seen. I like History of the World Part 1. That
Oh
was really
yeah,
fun. I wish they would have done a part 2. That would have been hilarious. I loved all the jokes and whatnot, and then the fact that he references them later on in other movies.
it's kind of hilarious though that there's a part one and not a part two. That's just very Mel
It's
Brooksian.
almost like they did it on purpose.
Yeah.
I think that I think people can remember this from Robin Hood Men in Tights when, they have King Richard show up and says that he
Hmm.
gets to kiss the bride because it's his royal right and whatnot.
Prima nocta kind of thing.
Yeah, and then Mel Brooks's character says it's good to be the king. That came from
Hmm.
History of the World
Oh, that's
because
right.
he
Yeah, I remember
says
seeing.
that in that movie. I was like,
That's funny. Yeah.
oh yeah, I remember that when they did the 10 Commandment joke. My people, I have brought you 15. Breaks it. 10 commandments. That
Perfect.
was really good. I did love that. I also liked, what was it? Zorro the Cable. Was that one of his? I think I saw parts of it, but I can't remember seeing all of it. But I remember seeing bits and pieces of that particular movie. I thought it was pretty funny. There was one joke in that movie. I think it was the Passover. They did a Passover scene in History of the World where Jesus was like talking about his betrayal.
Uh-huh.
And then he just, oh, wait, no, Mel
Oh, the
Brooks.
Last Supper.
Yeah, the Last Supper. And Mel Brooks is like the server.
Oh, okay.
He's in the 12 and he's making where he actually says, Jesus Christ. And Jesus is like, yes. But I think the other part was where he was like mentioning like who would betray him. And then he's like, Judas, and Judas is like, what? And then he like changes the subject. It's like, would you please pass the bread or something? I was like, oh, that's clever. That's really funny. Or the part where where they're talking about like who is a eunuch and whatnot. It's
Yeah,
like
I've seen that clip. Uh-huh.
that clip was funny. It's like eunuch, definitely a eunuch. This man is dead. I like that part. It's like this man is dead.
Could they have swapped out the word eunuch for a future Marvel writer? Or oh,
sick burn, sick burns. Nice. Anyway.
Sorry. Channeling diversity in comics there, right?
No, you're far more entertaining.
Or Nurkish.
People said that Nurkish's voice is worse than mine, and I'm like, I don't see it.
You both have great voices. I like you've got that a very distinctive kind of radio or podcast YouTube voice. That's good. You always know your video when you talk.
Yep, that's because I'm loud and obnoxious. I'm a YouTube star in the making when I'm loud and obnoxious. And with a voice that grates like nails on a chalkboard.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Oh no, I'm doing that on purpose. I'm making fun of myself. And the fact that every YouTuber gets that comment at least a couple times.
How they're really loud and obnoxious?
Well, loud or obnoxious, or that your voice is terrible.
Oh, okay.
Everybody gets that comment. Especially those who are loud or naturally loud or have like really like high pitched voices or are highly energetic. They get it all the time. Actually, what's funny is I've gotten both that and the polar opposite, where I was doing my Final Fantasy 15 video and I was talking really slow and I was doing it on purpose. I wasn't speaking like I normally did because I was like, I'm defeated. This game has beaten me because it sucks so bad and it's so boring. And I was like in a monotone state through the entire video for like, I think it was over 20 minutes or close to it. And I got comments every time. It's like, you're too slow. Like, do you not understand what pacing is?
See, that's me. My videos are all very calm, and I'm talking about this, and I'm doing an analysis, and professor voice, and yeah, that's why I have a hard time growing, I think.
You're
But I'll
mistaken.
subscribe to you, Rabbit.
Go watch his fun little videos. That man needs love.
I subscribed.
Go do so. He's fun. Maybe
I'm
someday
subscribing to all you guys in the chat. You guys are fun. I'm subscribing to everyone.
maybe someday we'll have Rabbit in on this because he likes mythology and history and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
cool.
he's a big fan of Romance of the Three Kingdoms and whatnot. So,
oh, okay, cool. Speaking of mythology, we've been talking a lot about, if not Sherlock, but at least that era with the Jack the Ripper and stuff like that, and that's such an interesting archetype for mythology too. Sherlock seems a little bit recent to talk about that, but the detective archetype, some people have traced it even back to Oedipus, because Oedipus, aside from doing the whole sick Freudian stuff, was also all about solving the Sphinx riddle and everything. So, some people have actually traced detective fiction back to like Oedipus Rex, but definitely that archetype started with Edgar Allan Poe's Monsieur Dupin, who Doyle based Sherlock on, and then you've always have that character who's socially awkward in some way, but brilliant at deductive skills and reasoning and such, and always has to have a sidekick to kind of bridge the gap between them and everything. And that's really what you see in Batman a lot sometimes. Now, sometimes Batman goes most often, I think he probably goes the hard-boiled detective route, which is more of a loner type and more of a different slight variation on that. But I wonder about Marvel. Who's their
Sherlock?
So we got, who's their big detective? I mean, we got like Jessica Jones, but who's like the real detective of Marvel, would you say?
I don't even know if they even technically have one that I can think of off the top of my head. I can't really think of anybody.
I mean, I guess any of the secret agents kind of do detective work, like Black Widow and stuff.
Black Widow,
it's kind of a given, but
but they're more like spies than detectives.
Daredevil, that's a good one. Yeah, being an attorney anyway, he's got to do some detective work. So
yeah, he is kind of part detective. He does kind of fit it, though. He also fits through like noir style and whatnot.
Yeah, he's a wonderful character. Such a built-in fascination. I mean, being that he's blind, and the embodiment of justice is the blind personification, unable to see, and he's the attorney by day and vigilante by night. Just so many built-in intricacies into that character. Such a great creation.
Well, if you're looking for a character, this isn't Marvel related, but I do know of another character who is basically a detective and is pretty much a more modern take on Sherlock Holmes.
Who's that?
And that would be the anime called Case Closed. I talked about it because I got that signature signing while I was at KomoriCon by the lead voice actor who did Jimmy Kudo. And that show pretty much is, the kid is like the biggest Sir Arthur Conan Doyle fan and the biggest Sherlock Holmes fan. So he modeled everything he does his entire life after Sherlock Holmes. In like the first episode, he's the best detective in town. He's smart, athletic, and capable, and the police rely on him to solve like every murder and case. Because
that's pretty much the detective. Yeah. What about I thought you were going to say Harry Dresden. Do you ever read those novels?
I can't say that I have. I don't even know what that is.
They're really fun. They're basically hard-boiled detective novels, but he's a wizard also. So he's a detective for this sort of, but not like a Harry Potter style wizard, more of a urban magical realism, kind of darker mythological realm kind of stuff. It's really fun. They even had a little television series they tried making out of it for a while. Didn't really take, but it had the guy from the series Arrow now who plays the deputy mayor, Laurel's dad, Detective Lance or whatever. He was Harry Dresden. It was pretty cool. Yeah, I don't remember his name either, but yeah, that was a fun series. A lot of mythological stuff going on there.
Yeah. like I said, if you like Sherlock Holmes related type mysteries and whatnot, I would probably recommend Case Closed.
Yeah,
It's
definitely. I got that on my list here. I wrote
been
it
around.
down.
It's been around for a long time actually, and it's still going. So
Cool.
right now, Netflix only has season 3 though, which saddens me. Doesn't
I
have
hate
season
that.
1 or
Like, how are
2.
you supposed to jump on from the beginning and they only have like season 4 or 5 or
Well,
3?
well,
Yeah.
well. Luckily for you, you have a friend who can help with that.
There you go.
You go to Funam. You can find season 1 on the cheap because they have like save versions of
Oh,
certain
okay.
shows for like $20 or over.
Uh
And
huh.
that's what I did when I was at the con is I bought season 1 for like $25
Gotcha. Okay.
from the Funimation booth directly. So
Yeah.
that's a good way to do it. You
Sounds
can
good.
get all the whole show, the whole first season. They had all first 3 seasons. I haven't gotten any further than that. The Japanese version I think is probably on like season 5 or 6 or something. It's been going for a long time since the 90s. I thought that
Howard the Duck. Perfect. You're right. He is a Marvel detective.
this is true. I completely forgot he existed.
I did too.
Yes, go watch Daredevil on Netflix, Rabbit. You have no excuses if you have Netflix at least. You
It's
have no
great. It
excuse.
really is. They did a good job.
Daredevil is a fun show. Good stuff. Fight on the series goes Kidnap Boy.
So now,
Japan
if
is
we,
on season 50. Has it been going that long? Because, dear Lord, if that's the case.
what's that?
Oh, Rabbit was mentioning how long. Bye, Trip. We'll see you later.
We'll see you, Trip.
Well, Rabbit was saying season 50. I was like, wait, you can't be serious. Has it been that long? Has it been around that long? Holy crap, if it has.
That's insane for any show.
I mean, it is highly popular. I'm not going to knock it
Yeah.
because the manga's still going.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's detective mystery stories. And you can just like you can just make random scenes of people being killed.
Yeah.
And then you can have a fun story.
Yeah.
And like it's literally episodic. Like every single episode is just another murder case to solve.
Mhm.
Although I did kind of like the hitch that they gave it. Because in the first episode, he's a teenager and he's fine. And then after nearing the end of the first episode, he sees some sort of shady deal go down with some sort of
Uh-huh.
secret organization, and they drug him, and it's supposed to kill him. But instead of killing him, it turns him into a child. And so then he has to solve the crimes in other ways.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
He has to get creative. He doesn't have his athletic prowess anymore. He still has
Huh.
his mind, but no one takes him seriously because it's a kid and no one trusts a child with
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
so serious.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's really
Detective
cool.
Conan, yeah. It's just called Detective
never-
Conan in
Okay.
Japan.
I have to
Yeah.
check that out.
But it is a lot of fun.
The first anime that I really got into, some girlfriend in high school was trying to make me read Ranma rather.
Ranma
that was
one half.
that was interesting. That was fun. But Helsing was the first one that I really got stoked for. The first anime series before they had finished the comics, so they had to kind of embellish some things. But that was a lot of fun. I've heard that there's a second version out now that follows the comic more closely. I haven't checked that
Yeah.
out yet, but Helsing is pretty
It's
fun.
called Helsing Unlimited.
Unlimited. That's right. Okay. Yeah.
Write
but
it down. Just so you don't forget. It's
yeah,
always
definitely.
good to try and remember. I never write anything down and I always forget stuff.
I think they have it on Hulu, so I'm gonna check it out. But
Yeah.
but no, that was a lot of fun because I mean, mythology does include the monsters too, monsters of any culture,
Yeah.
even if they're more recent. So I was gonna ask you actually. Someone asked a great question: if we were mythological characters, which one? I know you chose dragon, which is kind of monstrous, but if you were gonna be any of the more modern day monsters, like think universal type monsters or typical Halloween type monsters, which one would you choose?
Darn it, you said Universal style monsters. I don't know if I can pick Godzilla or King Kong.
Yeah, probably not.
I can't help it. It's the kaiju in me. I'd like to be a giant monster and stomp through the city.
Okay, fair enough.
Or just be a rubber man in a suit pretending to be the giant monster stomping
You mean a
around.
man in a rubber suit,
Yes.
not a rubber
Hey.
man in a suit?
I mixed it up.
Yeah, that's. It's
There
always
was a
interesting. You
movie
can kind
like that? Rabbit. Oh, there.
of. Huh?
I think there was. Oh, I have not seen that movie. They did a crossover movie between Conan and Lupin the Third,
Cool.
which is also another favorite of mine. I love Lupin the Third. That's a great anime to watch, especially if you like heist style antics and whatnot. That's fun.
Oh, cool. I have to
I
check that out.
I love. Well, that one's been around for quite a long time too. They do like some of those more classic like heist style films.
Yeah.
And Lupin is known as, I think he might have actually been a legitimate person, where he's the world's greatest criminal
Oh, okay.
or thief at the very
Well,
least. I don't know if I
that's
call him
perfect.
criminal.
The Moriarty to the Sherlock. That's great. That's a good pairing.
Yeah, good choices too. I didn't
Mariana.
think that it would be in the same time period,
Yeah.
but you know,
Mariana's talking about the difference in season length, and yeah, that is definitely something that is changing a lot nowadays too. And it's interesting because on the one hand, it eliminates some of the long, drawn out, poor pacing choices they have to make to stretch a story arc. But on the other hand, it sometimes like I don't know, I'm really bummed that I only have like 8 episodes per year to watch of Stranger Things, But
okay.
so I don't know.
Rabbit's making a correction for me, and I appreciate it. It's called Hellsing Ultimate, not Unlimited, because that leads to some bad things.
What is Rule 32 fan art?
That would probably involve sex and porn.
Oh, like hentai stuff. Okay.
Probably. I needed to bleach my eyes.
Tentacles everywhere.
I don't want to think about it. I don't understand Japan's fascination with some of the more creepier aspects things. Because it even seems like they're into that sort of stuff a bit too much too. It's worse than the fans doing it. It's they like doing it too. They like weird things that are so taboo I don't even understand it. Like
I would love to visit.
Monster Girls is a thing.
Oh,
I was like,
okay.
I guess that would kind of be fit into mythology.
What do you mean, monster girls? Like girls dressed as monster?
They're women who are part monster.
Okay.
Like
she-wolves and stuff, or
like a harpy.
Oh, okay.
Or what other ones were there? Like, I guess it would be kind of like a gorgon or a snake.
Yeah.
Lady. There were a lot of them. Mermaids. I'd rather not get into it because
but you're right.
They were taking from mythology. They're just using it as an excuse for more fapping material for people.
But that always been a link to mythology because you have on the one hand, like you were saying, the mermaids of the sirens. So those, but they were usually warnings. Like you'd have that, or you'd have stories even in Europe, in old world Europe, about a young man who meets a young woman and takes her into his home, and they have dinner or whatever. He ends up sleeping with her, and in the morning he wakes and finds her corpse next to him, that she was like a 3-week-old corpse or something like that. So he had he'd slept with a dead woman, or whatever, and those sort of cautionary tales about virtue and such or whatever.
Yeah,
but it's funny that they're now turned on their head, and now they're things that people seek out.
Yeah, snake folks are called lamia. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of that. Okay. Yeah.
But what else? We were talking about what universal monster I'd like to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. My options are creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein, Mummy, or Dracula.
Or Invisible Man. You could even broaden it out to zombie
Man.
Well,
if I was to probably pick, I'd probably pick the Invisible Man because I like the idea of being invisible. Because I'm already invisible on YouTube.
You got more followers than I do, sir.
This
more
is
subscribers.
I like making jokes at my own expense. If it wasn't, Wolfman, yeah, the Wolfman too.
Wolfman's great. I think, yeah.
People probably would think it's like, well, he has a wolf in the name. Why didn't he pick Wolfman?
That's right. Wolfman's such a classic archetype because that's really this. I pointed out in my video on anti-heroes that that's a little bit of where you get a Punisher appeal. Not that the
Good night,
Punisher's a
Electric. Sorry, I had
oh,
to
good night,
say good
Electric.
night.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Good night. Thanks
Have a
for
good
sticking
one.
around. I don't think I've followed you yet. I'll go and subscribe to you too. But yeah, no. So there's that appeal to when you're being oppressed or insulted or whatever, and the anger just becomes too much out of control, and then the beast within unleashes, and you wreak all kinds of terror or whatever, and that's kind of appealing. It's a cathartic thing to see. I mean, you don't really want it to happen in real life, but it's appealing. So that goes for werewolves or the Incredible Hulk, or even an anti-hero like the Punisher or whatever, just like flipping out and saying social sanctions be damned, I'm gonna do this and bring some justice.
Or well, I guess that would be kind of similar. Like the stories of berserkers too, I guess would fit into that too.
Oh yeah, talk more about that. Like,
well, I think that's one of the reasons why I've enjoyed. Like I know I've been talking about the Fate series a lot, but they do separate characters into basically a class system like you would find in an RPG.
uh-huh.
Everyone's limited to their own. Well, it's based off of whatever their mythology is, but they have all the different classes. You got a saber, so anybody who is proficient with a sword. You've got a lancer. You have an archer. You have a rider, an
Okay.
assassin, a caster, a berserker. Because berserker is one of the types that they
Just go
picked.
crazy in the field.
Well, they chose. I guess the way that it works in their universe, considering that mages are a thing and they have to summon the spirits in order for it to work. What they do is, in order to make a berserker, you have to add insanity or madness into the character, and that means anybody could end up being a berserker if you added madness.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
But some of at least one of the characters that they picked, which was, I think I mentioned it in my Fate video that I made originally, because it fit the character pretty well, was Hercules.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Because it made sense for him to be the berserker in the show, because what the parts of his history or his mythology was that he went on a rampage and killed his family.
Yeah, Hera drove him
and
mad.
Hera drove him mad. It was like, oh yeah, that adds up. That works out.
Yeah.
So it actually fits pretty well into his character. And they even added other little tidbits to his history, like what was it? He had 12 trials.
Yeah, that 12 tribes of Hercules. I think is it 12? Yeah.
It was either 12 or 9. So this version of Hercules doesn't die when someone tries to kill him. You have to kill him 12 times. So he has 12 lives.
10 labors of Hercules, but yeah, okay.
Oh, wait, yeah, it was 10. That's right.
Yeah.
So he has 10 lives.
Uh-huh.
So you have to kill him 10 times.
That's interesting.
And considering he's a berserker, they're highly overpowered and terrifying and can hurt everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do you kill something that has 10 lives at the same time?
Yeah.
They try. When I first saw the show and they had that fight, and they had the saber class and the archer class teaming up to try and kill him, it didn't work. He just came back angrier and angrier every single time. It's like,
yeah,
this is terrifying. How do you stop this monster? He's like a cat on steroids. That's exactly.
Cat on steroids.
Exactly. Cat on steroids. It's terrifying. And those particular characters, they don't really talk very much. They don't really have personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Their backgrounds and histories are more or less like told through like other means, like either through relations with other characters or other reasons.
Yeah,
because they added Lancelot in Fate Zero. He was the berserker, and
Lancelot is a berserker. Really, wow.
Well, I guess it kind of made sense because they used part of the history where he was crazy. Of course, like I said, you could turn any servant into a maniac.
Sure.
But I guess it kind of fits him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it fit with him narratively because they had the Saber, who was King Arthur, or as they like to call her, Arturia, because it's a lady instead of a man. Just the legend was a man, and said that, well, women weren't allowed to have this type of power. They weren't allowed to be kings. So that was their explanation for that. But
See you,
it fit
Omnitron.
in. Bye.
Thanks for the subscribe. So
Thank
far, you were
you.
the only one of these people in the chat who has subscribed to my channel.
Shame on you all. Shame.
I like what
Shame.
Mariana's talking about. Said that Hulk is I definitely see the Jekyll and Hyde in the Hulk, but I'd be curious as to where you see the Frankenstein connection, because I'm not getting that right immediately, but that doesn't mean it's not there. But definitely see the Jekyll and Hyde.
I guess the monster.
Yeah, but
aspect.
He is a monster, but
yeah, you're right. He was cobbled together.
Maybe I'm overthinking it too much or trying to be too specific about it, which is entirely possible. Oh, Kevin Storm. Oh, sweet. You're talking about Andromeda. I love that show. Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda.
I liked Andromeda and I liked Hercules.
Yeah, that is a great. He looks like a great god sort of play. Yeah,
he does.
He actually he went down in muscle mass a little bit for that show because he knew he was going to have Tyr Anasazi as the Nietzschean, who was supposed to be the big sort of berserker type and everything. But yeah, that's a great show. Talk about some wonderful mythological overtones too.
Yep, I think that I like that Kevin Sorbo was also in Supergirl for season 2. That was kind of
nice. Yeah, that was great too. I did not see that coming too. When well, spoiler alert, but something happens to him. I didn't see it coming.
We won't spoil it if you have not watched. If you have not caught up with Supergirl, we won't spoil it. We won't do that.
Caught myself.
Yeah, stopped yourself.
The misunderstood monster. Yeah, that's a great. I kind of see that. Good. I have to think about that some more. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's true, but would he be the Frankenstein? I guess he wouldn't technically be the Frankenstein monster.
Well, the
I can see the similarities with
monster.
I can understand like the similarities with like the original character's design, the way he was drawn, like back in the olden days, back in Jack Kirby era and whatnot. I could definitely see the inspiration from like Frankenstein because he looked like he had a very like kind of square, well, not square, but kind of like a rectangular.
Every character of Jack Kirby's in that period had a square head.
I guess so. I guess
even Mrs. Fantastic had a square head.
I think it was also the fact that he was gray too.
Yeah, that too.
Although I prefer him in the green tone, but yeah, gray kind of gave the vibe of like Frankenstein inspiration, or Frankenstein's monster. But I don't know. I guess, yeah, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde would be far more appropriate.
Marvel just released this past October. I did some videos on them for my Halloween vlog thing I did, but they released new compilations of all their classic Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night comic books. And Tomb of Dracula is, of course, which launched Blade and Satana and all that kind of stuff. And man, it's really great going back and reading those old stuff by Gary Conway and Marv Wolfman and all the old classic horror comics of the 70s was really neat. Yeah. I'm glad they did that. And it was like, hey, something by Marvel I can buy.
Hey! Finally, it's about bloody time. Since that was when? It has been an eternity.
Do you think you'll ever do some more comic videos again, or are you still enjoying the break?
I was thinking of doing some.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a video talking about some of the stuff that's... Well, it was some of the stuff that Englentine pointed out. You know, his existential crisis.
Oh, yeah.
Video that he did. Where it's like, is it too late for Marvel? Are we facilitating it? And things like that. I think that
was good.
Well, I and it was during the stream where we kind of talked about stuff like that. It's like, are we looking for dragons to slay or monsters to kill when we have like a knee-jerk reaction to something stupid put into one of Marvel's books? It's like, this is par for the course now. They're gonna be political until someone steps in and says stop doing that. So for now, it's like we're kind of stuck with it. So it's like, are you going to just keep having knee-jerk reactions to it? And that's kind of what what the video is going to cover. I wish I had better thumbnail skills, because then I would have had a lot more fun with the thumbnail, because I took a picture of a knight facing off against a dragon and just
I
put
found
Marvel's logo on top of the dragon's face.
I can send you
I
a
think I
couple of
prefer to.
websites.
I think I would
They
prefer to have
remove
like
back.
a. Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was thinking, it's like I would prefer to, like, I don't know, put Dan Slot's face on the dragon or something.
Not Slotzilla, right? Yeah.
Slot dragon.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so a couple of websites I use, you can remove the background and then kind of edit layers over and stuff. But Rabbit,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah, Blade was the first rated R superhero film. Really, almost one of the
Yeah.
first superhero films from Marvel, anyway. And that I'm so conflicted about that film because that was a great movie. I really liked that first movie, but it's written by David S. Goyer, and I've got such issues with him and other things that he's done. But yeah, you're right. That was such a classic. Blade was such a cool franchise. I even liked part 2. I thought part 2 was a nice change of pace. But yeah, part 3
I'm
was
trying
just,
to remember
what are
which
you
part
doing?
had professional wrestlers in it.
That
Was
was
that
part
part 3?
1. That was part 1. Yeah, Blade had
Was it part 1? I
Triple
can't
Triple
remember.
H or Triple X or whatever his name was. I
Triple
forgot. I
H.
don't know.
Yeah.
Triple H.
I was
Yeah.
remember Triple H in the movie. I was like,
Yeah.
was it that he was in? Damn, that was fun to see him in that movie.
It was really cool, that point where Blade gets his shades back from him. That was nice.
I used to enjoy watching wrestling. I still like some of the older stuff far more so than I do new stuff, because it's like, oh, hey, let's push this person who has literally no charisma and is boring as a stick.
Mhm.
It's like, but still, we want him as the face of the franchise. He's going to be the next John Cena. It's like, at the very least, John Cena is charismatic. This guy is literally a blank wall. I'd rather watch paint dry.
I would
Also,
not.
I have far more joy of watching, like, the villain wrestling characters far more so than the good guys anyway, because they get to have all the fun.
Oh yeah.
Bad guys get to have all the fun. And that was the case with most bad guy wrestlers. They get to have all the fun. They get to, like, hit people with chairs and objects and be an asshole and be far more charismatic and entertaining.
I don't really watch wrestling, but that is its own little mythology. I mean, they've got that
Yeah.
own little thing worked in there. I do think that I don't know. I'm always impressed by the certain actors that come out of that wrestling that actually can act, like Dwayne Johnson or somebody like that, or Batista or whatever.
Batista is fun.
Yeah.
The one thing that I used to do when it came, because I was still kind of fairly new to wrestling, but I liked the documentaries where the wrestlers would, like, share parts of their lives and show the history of, like, where they started and whatnot. I got a lot of entertainment value out of those types of things. But I have one that was for Batista and whatnot, and his journey through the years, where he started, where he went afterwards, family life. They do a lot of family life stuff and whatnot, talking about, like, the rough times and whatnot.
The Cinderella stories.
Yeah. I think I can't remember. I think I might have about 3 or 4 of those types of DVDs, because I have one for Batista. I have one for Randy Orton. One for Rey Mysterio, who I really like because it's like, hey, Mexican wrestling.
Anything like the Mysterio from Marvel?
No. Although his name means King Mystery.
Oh, okay, cool.
In English. And Chris Jericho. And those are some of my favorite people who have been a part of wrestling. Anyway, they were my personal favorites when I watched.
I haven't watched wrestling since I was a child, and the Ultimate Warrior was still a big deal.
Ultimate Warrior is cool.
Yeah. Hulk Hogan was still a big deal when I think I was watching it.
Yeah. He's always a big deal, though. Him and
the cartoon, that was always fun.
The movies.
Junkyard Dog. Remembering all that stuff now.
It's fun times.
Yeah, definitely.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was so cool that he showed up in that first Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I loved his part. But when I originally saw him, I'm like, dude, are you on steroids right now? Because holy crap.
Yeah.
I know you're, well, one, you're older than most wrestlers, but still at the same time, holy freaking crap. The veins in his arm. Every time I saw him on the screen, I'm like, that dude's got to be on roids right now. I can't not think that he's on steroids right now. I can't.
Yep.
It's physically impossible for me not to think about it. Snap into a
Hey,
Slim Jim. Oh yeah.
speaking of older, and I know I'm a little older than you. Do you ever feel like, I don't know, you're like trying to lure kids into your van or something in this whole comic skate community? Because I go into some of the threads and I love the people in the community. I'm interacting with them and have a lot of fun, but then they start talking about how old they are, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, me too, totally.
Some of them are old guard, some are new guard. It depends on who you're asking.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I think you have
I
some.
guess I've kind of reached a happy middle where I'm not too old and I'm not too young.
That's true.
I of course there's been a part of me that for the longest time, it could just be because I hung out with a lot of old people. Because, well, my parents were considerably older when I was born.
Oh,
They were
okay.
like in their 40s when they had me and my brother, so they were already older.
Yeah.
So
I'm hoping I can skip old and creepy and just go straight to old and senile. As long as I can just
I
be
hope
seeing
so too.
stuff more fun.
I have seen Undertaker. Yes, he is still ripped as hell.
Is he
Despite
really?
his
Wow.
age, he is still a presence to be reckoned with.
I do know him because his visuals are so cool. That image that he
Yeah,
had.
I always like it. I like the personas of wrestling characters
Hmm.
far more so than the action, because it's like I want you to entertain me. That's what I want. I want you to be charismatic and goofy or something really interesting that'll be like, that's cool. I like that. I think that's why, like, if you look on my Twitter and you see who I follow, you can see I follow Chris Jericho because
Uh-huh.
he's my favorite. Because that dude, it's like I'm surprised he does not have a full-fledged acting career yet. I literally am, because I think he could pull it off because he plays a good bad guy a lot. And I was like, I would love to see him as a villain in a movie. I don't care what movie, but I want to see him as a charismatic bad guy because he nails it.
The name. Oh, okay. I had to look it up. The name sounded really familiar, but I wasn't picturing the face. But yeah, okay. I see what you're talking about now.
What, Jericho?
Yeah. 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 Talking to a not a wrestler fan. Yeah. So not a wrestler watcher. So I get it now.
Yeah.
Cool.
I really, well, I remembered buying that DVD because I didn't know a lot about like his past, like when he started and whatnot. But
Uh-huh.
seeing a lot of it, because wrestling's all about promoting yourself and making promos. And I loved watching like his backlog of old promos, like
Hmm.
when he first showed up to WWE after leaving WCW was hilarious. They had this timer clock going on because it was nearing the year 2000.
Uh-huh.
So they thought like this was the timer clock for, New Year's
Yeah.
or the new era or whatever the heck you want to call it. I can't think of the wording because
Y2K or whatever.
yeah. Oh wait, no, yeah, it was right around the Y2K scare.
Okay.
And the timer ends and he shows up. Then he and the one thing that he did, which I loved so much, was he crashed The Rock in the middle of his promo. And it was hilarious. He had a goofy haircut. He
Hmm.
had he used to have long hair, but he doesn't anymore. But he had long hair. He had part of it in a ponytail, wearing like sparkly vests and pants, and he just comes out and he interrupts The Rock. And he does this huge long speak, and then The Rock interrupts him. It's like, who do you think you are? And he's like, I think it doesn't matter who you are, or stuff like that. And I was like, this is really fun to watch. And he did so many of those funny little skits where he would interrupt people or cause trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite one he ever did was he was on. They did a game of musical chairs. I'm not kidding. They did a game of musical chairs to see who would be able to compete or be number one contender for one of the titles. And Jericho was involved.
Huh.
So they played a literal game of musical chairs until there was one last chair left and two people left. And there was this big honking dude. I don't remember his name. But right when the music ends and the guy's about to sit down in the chair, Chris takes the chair out from under him, or takes the chair before he can sit down and hits him with it. Guy, kind of rolls out of the ring and he folds the chair and sits on it. He's like, I win.
So he's clearly the trickster of the wrestling universe.
Yeah, for a while he was, and it was a lot of fun. Anyway.
I want in on some of these cookies that Mariana's talking about she makes.
Cookies?
That sounds good. Yeah, she said she is the cool grandma type who gives the kids cookies in this community. I'm all about that.
My favorite. One of my favorites, anyway.
Rabbit's grandma actually slapped Randy Savage a long time ago at one of the events. Wow.
Would you like to go out
for dinner? That's awesome.
No.
That's awesome.
Fun times.
It's such an interesting subculture, but anyway.
It is. It's fun. Let's get back to something else. Does anybody have questions for Professor Geek?
I can pull from my class material.
Or for me, one or the other. Some of the coolest videos I've seen are the M4G Nation ones with Avengers versus Justice League using the video game superheroes in wrestling tag team matches.
Oh, I haven't seen the tag team matches one though. That's interesting. I have to look that up.
That might be fun.
That was such a cool. I don't think we'll ever have it again because there's so much competition now. But back in the day when they used to do Marvel DC crossovers and Avengers versus the Justice League, that whole Perez thing, that was amazing. I mean, that was just. But even somewhat like '97, they had Wonder Woman crossover with Spider-Man. It was kind of fun. So I miss those.
Rabbit, I was asking for legitimate questions, not a joke question. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? I don't know.
Depends on what you mean by wood and what you mean by chuck.
I know a few chucks. Do you want me to ask them?
Oh man.
I think that it's interesting because I connect, I guess, a bit more with older people sometimes than I do with younger ones. Or with people near my age group. I'm a weird oddity that way, I guess.
So few of my most of the younger people I interact with are my students, and so few of them actually care about reading or stories or anything of an artistic nature.
They're missing out.
They really are, But
shame on them. Just shame on them. You have an opportunity to learn.
I know. I mean, I got some great students, but I hear them say things like, I don't really like movies because they're just long, and I just like TV shows. I'm like, oh, God forbid you have to pay attention to something. Because they have to pay too much attention. They'd have to sit down and be seated in one spot and just focus on something for at least 2 hours, and they just can't handle that. The attention span, darting from this app to that app to this tweet to this whatever, they can't handle it, and it's just... I show movies in class sometimes, and it's uncanny. Like, I can lecture, and they don't pay attention or anything.
Are you kidding me? When my teachers used to put movies on for me, I used to thank the heavens and the gods for allowing me not to have to do homework.
You're right.
It's like, I will sit down and watch a 2-hour-long movie if it means I don't have to do a paper.
As soon as I start a movie, though, 6 people have to get up and go pee. And it's not that they have to get up and do anything. It's just that they can't handle sitting there for that long period of time and having to focus on one thing. I
have to ask the question, Do they have ADHD like my brother and they can't sit still for more than a few minutes?
No, no, my daughter has that, and I'd be completely understanding about something like that. But this is just across the board. Unless like every single one of my students over the years have had that, then no.
That would be
So
an interesting thing, but I guess no.
I actually read an article talking about, and this kind of plays into the medium of how we experience mythology, really. So it's not completely unrelated, but it was talking about how people's brains are changing and how our brains used to be better at focusing on one thing for a longer period of time. So people could read longer books or longer stories or longer articles just in one sitting a lot better. Now we've dropped that. We've, just in general, not everybody in specific individually, but in general, we've lost that ability to focus on one thing for a longer period of time. Instead, we've gained the ability to multitask at a more shallow depth, which comes from the phone and jumping from this app to this article to this story over here to all of that. So we can kind of multitask on a more shallow level, but we can't really, focus on things longer. And I think you might even see that kind of reflected in some of the episodic type, or at least little snippets of issues and things like that we get in a lot of comic arcs. You don't really see a a longer story just in a one shot. You can kind of focus on everything. You just get little snippets here and there, or I don't know. There's more to be made of it, but it's just in a loose thought right now.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Apparently, in my notifications, there was another hangout going on. I'm like, what? Who's doing another hangout? Who's taking my viewers? Damn it!
Is that Captain Frugal?
It was I Love Comics. It was Englentine.
Oh,
He's
gotcha.
probably doing a stream right now or something, or we're hanging out doing something. I don't know. Maybe hold on a sec. Let me check YouTube, see if they're doing something. Maybe they are, and I'm unaware of it. Because Englentine is an old fuddy-duddy who can't sleep.
I'm like that. I don't sleep either.
Sleep is for the weak. I'm kidding. I actually enjoy sleeping. Yeah.
They have one going on right now?
Yep, it looks like it. Looks
Gotcha.
like.
Well, we're still having fun. I appreciate everybody who's come out to this one. It's been a fun chat.
Yeah, of course, they have far more than us. They have 45. No one wants to come and say hello to me.
Mariana and Rabbit are worth 45, so there you go.
Yes, they are.
But yeah, no, I don't sleep at all.
Where I fight crime while telling bedtime stories to little kids online. Sleep? What's that? Yes, I do sleep.
I don't sleep until about 5 a.m. I'm on East Coast time, and I can't go to sleep. I tried to go to sleep early. I even teach an early morning class, so in those days, that's rough. I try to nap.
That was the question that me and my mom were asking. It's like, when does he sleep? Because it's all like, does he sleep? I thought I don't know, maybe he has night classes and he just sleeps during the day.
Yeah, no, I get naps. So I'll sleep in the mornings when I don't have to teach, because my wife will take my daughter, and then I'll wake up a little later, and then I'll take her, and then my wife naps or whatever. But yeah, I just can't do it because too, my daughter, she's she's autistic and has a couple of things going on. So she demands a lot of attention, and there's no doing a lot of work when you're hanging out with her because she demands attention. Plus, she all up in your lap and everything. So, it's great, but it's not a lot of work to be done. So when she goes to sleep at night, that's the only time I'm productive, whatever it is, whether it's geeking out or whether it's doing grading or writing or whatever, because I do some writing. But yeah, so I just started doing that, and then my schedule, my clock just got on that, and I come alive at night. So I nap during the day at little key points, and that's how I do it. But yeah, everybody's like, when do you sleep? I'm like, during the day. Strategic times.
Yep. That's sad. Autism is a thing that is rough for parents and for the kid.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, it's different for everybody who has it. So, but Alyssa's a sweetheart.
I have at least one friend who is at least mildly autistic. He's not like one of the full-fledged cases. Because when he was a kid, I made friends with him when his family moved in a couple houses down from me. And then there were times when, I had something else to do or there was something more important going on. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't hang out with you right now. He'd show up every day or almost every day to hang out. And then I had to tell him, I'm sorry, I can't hang out right now.
Yeah,
I got
sort of
other stuff to do. There's things I have to take care of, or it's just I'm tired and I can't contend with you again every single
yeah,
day. Um,
inability to understand some of the social norms and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, his idea of responding to that at least one time when I told him basically that I can't do anything right now, I'm busy, was to leave a note on my door threatening to kill me.
Wow.
Or
Okay.
something. It was either to kill me or kill himself. I was like, what the frick is this?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. I took the note and I actually went over to his house. I'm like, what is this about? And he's
Wow.
like, I'm upset with you. It's like, I can see that, but to threaten violence? What is this?
Ugh.
And then his mom told me, because originally I didn't know that he had any forms of autism.
Mhm.
So I didn't understand that part. But
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so different. Rabbit, mentioned he has Asperger's, so yeah, that's a more common high functioning. Yeah, so I understand what you
yeah,
mean. That is in sleep. It does, Alyssa. Man, we have to train her. The doctors have given us like these heavy duty meds because her brain doesn't produce dopamine, so
yeah.
that's difficult too. But it does, concerning like the Comicsgate community, it makes me wince a little bit. I hear this a lot, okay, coming, or not a lot. I hear it occasionally from a wide variety of people. They'll use the word autistic to describe like, oh my God, this comic book's autistic. It's blah blah blah, And I understand what they're saying, what they're trying to say, but it's one of those things I wince a little bit. I'm like,
Yeah,
maybe you should pick a different word there. I get what you're trying to say, but there's a different way of expressing it. That's not generalizing and offensive to some
yeah.
people and stuff.
I mean, on occasion, I might use the word retarded, but I'm normally meaning it in a different context, not normally meaning the people who are actually have mental disabilities.
Yeah, there are people who just knee-jerk reaction, get immediately
Yeah.
enraged that you would dare do that, and I understand. I mean, you want to ideally you'd like people not to do that, but at the same time, not everybody's trying to make a personal slight. It's a there's a different way to bring awareness about that than just immediately flaring up in anger. So, but alas,
To hold back or so on. Yeah. Or
yeah,
I think another
just slow down,
definition is to dumb down
to
or
slow,
or to slow.
like in music. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There are many that's the one thing I wish people would learn more about is words and the context behind said words.
yeah,
There are different meanings behind words.
indeed.
And nowadays, words have lost all meaning. I could say the most heinous things possible, and people probably wouldn't think nothing of it now.
Well, like
It's like,
speaking of, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say,
I
speaking, this kind of ties into the Comicsgate kind of thing a little bit, but I deal with this in school in the academic world too. I mean, there are people who don't you dare say that you're not a feminist. How dare you? Yes, you are. You just, don't say you're an egalitarian and not a feminist. You just don't understand what feminism is then. Blah, blah, blah. Like, you need to, everybody needs to calm down, stop trying to paint these arguments as though they were false binaries. If you feel very passionate about that word, you like that word, fine, but stop pretending that everybody has to hold your own specific definition of it, because they don't. That's the way language works. It's prescriptivist and descriptivist. You can't just pick and choose due to your agendas, so
it's the same thing of what was I thinking? Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I just lost my
sorry.
train of thought.
I
Great.
did, sorry.
No, it's not your fault. I was thinking of something and then it slipped my mind. Just decided to take a stroll.
I understand that. Imagine that happening in the middle of a lecture with a class staring at you. And movie time
is cute.
The unfortunate way they've portrayed her visually, I think he's trying to allude to.
Is Anya trying to make me upset with how terribly they draw her? Yes, that's probably what she's trying to do.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
I mean, I'm not saying that my art is any better than anybody else's, but I feel like I could draw better than most artists currently working for Marvel. Well, and that's saying something when it comes from the guy who mainly focuses on anime and manga style art.
But in the case of something like Squirrel Girl, they're purposely trying to make her look like that. That's not even like they're trying to do something different, and that's the way it came out. It's yeah. I don't know what's going on with that. I'm really
Oh,
upset.
yes,
Oh, go ahead.
I could say that's what she was referring to. Me saying heinous things.
Oh, gotcha.
That's not what I was referring to. Actually, making a compliment to the terrible art style that makes me want to slap somebody or
Yeah.
punch a pillow because it hurts my feelings. I can contend with bad art on occasion, but please, somebody, when I go to when I go to an anime or manga which has such a simplified art style, and it's like I would rather stare at this for several hours than stare at that. I'd
Yeah.
rather do that, even if it's not greatly done. I'd rather stare at it than
Yeah.
a quote detailed comic book artist, and I'm putting that in air quotations.
Well, there's a way to do stylized art well and a way not to do it. So you mentioned anime. There's still rules to an anime art style. So that,
Yeah,
in a lot of comic books that are supposedly stylized art, like Scroll Girl or whatever, there's no continuity. There's no consistency from one panel or page to the next one. Her chin might be over here in this one, and then it's up here in the next one, and it's just all sort of free form and free flowing. In anime, there's an actual character design. It's a stylized character design, but it's consistent, in everything you see or whatever. And that's where it really bugs me. If you're going to do stylized, okay, not my favorite thing, but at least be consistent. Stop making them look
yeah.
funky faced, in one panel to the next because it's just, free form or whatever. But
Consistency
anyway,
in a comic book is key. At
exactly.
least with the art, be consistent. If your art is not consistent, it's going to be a juxtaposition. It's going to upset people. I've seen the art coming from Marvel. I think they did that a lot with like Secret Empire too, where they were
Mhm.
like constantly switching artists like mid panels and whatnot. I'm like, this is so different. Everything is weird. Not to mention that whoever is inking and coloring this needs to go back and learn how to color a color book. Because goddamn, this is the muddiest coloring I've ever seen in a book. I know we're
Yeah.
going for dark undertone, but good God. I've seen darker undertones in other books that are better than this. I've seen dark shadows in like dark stories in like manga form, and that's in freaking black and white.
Yeah.
And it's better. I think I saw. Well, oh, what was it? I had at least the first volume of a book called. Oh, what was it? Called Get Backers, and
Hmm.
one of the characters in the show or in the book has the power to make someone see a dream for like a minute, or wait, no, it's a dream that
Hmm.
turns into a nightmare, something that they want very badly, but turns terrible. And in the book, they have this horrible guy who's like, oh, hey, I'm getting away, and all these great things are happening. And then it turns into a horrible nightmare driven demon spawn of Satan with just blacks and whites and images of horrible monsters freaking the dude out. And it's like, this is what you call detail. This is what you call consistency.
Yeah.
Could you please learn this?
Wow.
And you're doing it just in black and white,
Hmm.
and I can see the detail. I can see everything. And it's like you muddied everything with the ink. You might as well have done the book in black and white.
Yeah.
Because at least then the colors aren't muddy reds and greens that look like puke and make me disturbed and sick. Anyway.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I like what Mariana's talking about, Cliff Chang and Mike Norton. Those are some great ones. And now I do. I mean, like ideally, I'd prefer somebody like the great Jose Luis Garcia Lopez to do my comics. Love his stuff. But if you're gonna do stylized, I do enjoy Tim Sale's art, and he's highly stylized. But I like it
Yeah.
because there are reasons behind it. It's not just random. So like he'll take one part of a character's face and caricaturize it so that he's basing what their personality is on. So for example, Batman always has the large, long bat ears because that's who he is,
Yeah.
that dark gothic. The Joker's got that comically huge grin and chin, because that makes sense for him and stuff. So I like that Catwoman's highly accentualized hourglass figure for that femme fatale and stuff. So I like it, but it's consistent, and it also alters it's a different design for each story that he tells because he tailors it to that story and to the way the characters are in that story. But yeah, I just think that
Right.
in general we could get back to some realism in comic books, Marvel and DC. I'd like to see that, see a little bit more.
Yeah. Me personally, I guess I lean more towards stylized stuff more, but
Well, the anime
probably
kind of
it's,
stuff, yeah.
yeah, because it's more stylized. They're not always doing very realistic proportions or anything of that nature.
Yeah, and I don't
Uh,
mean realistic proportions necessarily. It can be idealized, but still
yeah.
a realism,
Well,
So yeah,
anime and manga is always about the expression of the characters.
yeah, yeah.
The eyes are like the biggest focal point for pretty much all of them. That's the focus.
Rabbit
It's like
Sensei,
look in the eyes.
he just said, "P.S. If anyone Googles Makoto Nanya, make sure safe search is on." Too late, my friend. I just Googled that when you mentioned it, and bam, search history dumped. Gary Frank, yes, Gary Frank is a god. Ethan Van Sciver, of course, absolutely, definitely.
Jason Fabok. Him and Ethan were doing a stream earlier. That
Oh,
was some
cool.
fun stuff. I enjoyed that.
I didn't catch that. Ethan's such a great personality to have on YouTube and stuff, and dealing with the fans and everything. That's really cool.
Yeah, I wish that more artists and whatnot would, and writers would join YouTube and kind of share their experiences and whatnot, because it's
Yeah.
fun stuff to learn, and you can definitely get a lot more out of it. Maybe learn some stuff from them.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things I used to do, which I haven't done as much nowadays, was there was one guy here on YouTube called Mark Crilly, who is a published comic book artist or graphic novel writer and artist or whatever you want to call it. And he gets a lot of his inspiration from anime and manga. So his style is very much that. And he's been on YouTube for years and just teaches people how he draws and whatnot and sharing his books. And he's made how-to books, and I've bought 2 of them, and they've actually been
Oh,
great.
cool.
And I appreciate that someone was actually willing to go out there and, create a digital following and like, hey,
Yeah.
here's what I'm working on, because he's been doing stuff off and on for years. I think the last project he worked on was a story called Brody's Ghost, which was
Okay.
it's an interesting idea for a story.
Cool.
But
Do you think you'll ever try making your own comic book? I know a lot of artists on YouTube are doing that now. Is that something you'd like to do one day?
I've I would like to either
Mhm.
that or do something video game related.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But I mean, I've got books I could take out right now, full of all sorts of crazy ideas.
Yeah.
Everything from science fiction to fantasy to comic book style superheroes. I have been a busy little bee all the time. I love character design, and I've been doing it for so long. It's a habit, and it's a habit that's been like, I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied with this design. I want to go back to the drawing board, do it again,
Yeah.
do it again, do it again. God damn it, do it again. It's like, I'm never going to get anything done at this rate. I need
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
consistent look for one character, and I'm never satisfied. I'm like, I got to go back to the drawing board, do it again. Of course, that's probably because my art style is just like growing and changing over time, and I'm just trying to learn and get better.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, all the greats
So,
did that. I mean,
yeah.
that's cool.
But
So
I would like to. I mean, I think that I took one of those writing, oh, one of those notebooks that you would like take to school to write your notes in. And I was like, okay, I'm going to actually start working on a comic book story. Barely got anywhere. Didn't even fill a page.
oh no.
I was working on the general premise and stuff. I was taking one of my original ideas I had, which was I was gonna try and do like a superhero story mixed with kind of like mixing like Superman and Spider-Man ideas, like how their characters work, like young
Hmm.
superhero, but with the powers of highly omnipotent alien power. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, I want to do a story like that. And then I was like, and I kept on. I would like design the character for. I've been redesigning him so much over the years, and it's like it's at the point where I'm looking at him and I'm like, you don't even technically look like a prototypical superhero. You look like a common rider from Japan. You look like a common rider. So I was like, okay, you know what? Since he kind of looks like a common rider style outfit with the superhero costume, it's like, why don't I just do that? Why don't I just like take a few elements from stories that I've come up with and just like write basically a Sentai style superhero story? Why am I not doing this?
Yeah, that'd be great. I know that Mariana
I
talks about how she's doing comics as well. I would love to see a lot more of your guys' work. I know you hardly post yours, Nightwolf. I know sometimes you do, but I'd like to see more of it posted. And yeah, I love
It's
seeing.
because I'm a perfectionist and I refuse to let anybody see my work.
I understand that being a writer. I mean, you're talking about going over different sketches. I mean, yeah, revising different drafts of stories that I write. Yeah, I understand that. And there's that anxiety.
I guess you know what would be something fun that I think I might do is I might show some of my sketchbooks and some of the work I've done, and then get people's feedback. Because a lot of the stuff I have done where I've shared is just like random stuff. I was just like, I'm just gonna sketch something random. It's like, hey, I want to draw robot faces, and it's like, someone give me input. Does this look okay? No, it doesn't. It looks terrible. I know it doesn't. Or they're just like giving me advice. It's like, here, why don't you bulk this up, or why don't you add this? I'm like, why didn't I do that the first time? God damn it! You think I would know better by now?
No, yeah, feedback's good though. But yeah, it'd be great to see. I know Mariana says she posts hers. I don't know where you guys' Twitter handles are, so I don't get to see that other than Nightwolf, of course. But
Anya's is literally the same as what we're seeing. I think her Twitter is the same. She doesn't have a YouTube presence, but she does have a Twitter presence, and she shares her artwork all the time. It's constantly in my feed every single day, where she's showing like some of the stuff that she's worked on. Oh yeah, there's some of it right now. I think it's a Batman picture. Looks like. I will retweet that now.
Cool.
Then you can probably, if you look at my feed, you'll probably see it.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here trying to type it while paying attention to everything else. That'd be cool. Yeah. Excellent. Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I like to see that kind of stuff.
She posts art all the time, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, I'm following. It's so hard when you're in these live streams, because you want to, be listening to people who are in a live stream group together and think, oh, that's fun. I really want to, subscribe to some of these guys. But sometimes it's hard to even find their YouTube channels if they're not chatting in the chat box, because you can't just click on show me their channel or whatever. And then on Twitter, you're just having to guess what their name might be or whatever. So,
yeah. But, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that for a video in the foreseeable future. If that's what show you some of the work I've done.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because it's been a growing progression. I think one of the projects that I wish that I had the confidence, which is why I was thinking like maybe I'll do the kind of Kamen Rider Sentai superhero thing first, because that would be a lot easier for me. Because I don't do a lot of like backgrounds or anything of that nature, and I need to learn that, and I need to learn more mechanical stuff. And by mechanical, I mean like cars, vehicles, stuff like that. Because the big project that I've always worked on, off and on, was I wanted to do my own like space epic type thing. I wanted to do my own space story in the veins of things like Robotech and Gundam. And it's like, in order to do that, I need a lot of practice on drawing mechanical things, robots, spaceships, space fighters, insert whatever technology thing you need, planets. I need practice, and I don't have enough practice in those things. But I worked on that for a long time, where it's like I want to make my own Star Trek or Star Wars, basically.
That'd be excellent.
That was kind of what I wanted to do. And I still
keep going for it.
Well, yeah, obviously. I have most of the ideas. I have like most characters are pretty much design-wise are done, unless people want to give me advice on how to improve the designs, obviously. But other than that, most of the characters are pretty much done. They've been rearranged so many times. It's like you cannot imagine. And also the thing is like considering the amount of characters and cast that I've put into it, I'm like, this project is not a comic book. Mm-hmm. This is not a comic book project. This is a video game project. There's too much going on. There's too many characters. I need a massive, like, JRPG strategy style thing going on here. This is like in the veins of Fire Emblem. There's too many characters at any given time. It's like, this is what I need to do. I basically just need to make a giant strategy RPG game out of it. Because at this point, it's snowballed out of control. I've been doing this since I was like in middle school to high school.
There's a market for that too, though. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working on a fantasy novel right now. Well, more sword and sorcery style novel. I've been working on it for a little bit, and I think that's going to be my next project. I'm trying to finish it up by the new year here to shop around to agents shortly thereafter. But because mostly I'm a short story writer. I've got some short stories published in different anthologies out there, and that's a lot easier for me because I'm just more of a natural inclination to that arc and that tiny short tale, and I can really maybe just craft that to a perfect punch. But when you're dealing with a novel, you're right, it's really hard. You've got that length and that all these loose threads and all these things you have to tie up and make into a coherent, perfect, polished structure, and it takes some time. So.
And the problem is that most of the story is not written down; it's in my head. Because I'm slow at writing. That's my problem. Mm-hmm. I'm terrible with writing. It's been that way since I was a kid because I have ADD and I can't focus for long periods of time all the time.
Yeah.
So I struggle with that. And I'm like, the one thing that I used to do, because I took creative writing when I was in high school, and when the teacher told us, like, okay, this is the final project. We've been doing a lot of different projects like poems and random little stories and whatnot. But I want you to tell me a short story. And it can be about whatever you want. There are no limitations. And I mean, literally, he said there are no limitations. So students ask us, like, does that mean we can curse in this story? And he's like, yes, you can. I was like, okay, interesting choice. It's like you're letting loose the dogs of war now, dear Lord.
Yeah. That's cool.
It was like, okay, sure. And at the time, I was really big into an anime by the name of Trigun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of my favorites. It was basically a sci-fi Western.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, I kind of want to do a story like that. So, and I'd kind of already been like working around with ideas about that, and I still kind of have, still to this day. It's like, once again, I fall into the same trap and problem where I make too many characters, and then it's a problem. Mm-hmm. It's like, I need to either cut characters or I need to do something else. I need to do something else with this. Actually, I was thinking like maybe an RPG with that would probably work out pretty well too.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the one thing I was thinking about it for a while was I was thinking like, what if I did there was one game during the PlayStation 1 era called Suikoden 2 where they did a split path story with two characters who are like best friends, but then they're split between a conflict between two different countries. And, the fact that they still want to be friends, but can't be friends because, their ideals clash too much or something of that nature. And I was like, maybe I could do something like that because I have two characters. I have the main character and basically the main antagonist who's not really the bad guy, but he's, a pursuer. Kind of like, it's like, this is the police officer, this is the outlaw. It's like, what if I could just do a game where I split the two up and you got to play two different sides of a story? And it's like, that sounds a lot more intriguing to me than doing a comic book where, obviously you would go through only probably one perspective and then you'd have to go back and write a different perspective entirely.
Yeah. That sounds cool. That would
be twice the work and probably for less payoff.
Yeah,
but
I understand what you mean. That's cool.
That original idea, or not really an original idea, but that idea came from that short story. And that was probably the one project when it came to writing where I was like wholly dedicated to this project. Where, because he said that there was no limit to length.
Yeah.
And I could do it for as long as I wanted. And it was like the final midterm thing to do. And we had like, I think probably about 2 to 3 weeks to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I was banging out pages and pages of story for this one short story project. But the problem was it had to be ended in like type format.
Oh,
and whatnot. And I was like, I cannot type to save my life.
Oh, yeah.
My spelling is terrible. I can't type. So I, due to the fact that I was part of the special needs classes and whatnot, I was afforded the opportunity to use an assistant as a scribe to let her type it down for me.
That's good.
So then, I didn't have to do it, because if I had to do it, it would have taken, I would never have gotten anything done, because I was constantly still writing pages. And I think I turned in at least, oh God, I can't even remember how many pages I turned in. I was still working on it. I wasn't even done. I was still writing pages. It's like, I gotta finish this. I have to give him something. So I gave him, I think maybe about almost 10 pages of a story.
Yeah.
Or something to that nature. I got an A.
That's cool.
I worked very hard on that project.
I hope you still have it.
I don't. I lost the papers. Bummer. Thankfully for me, some of the elements and the stories that I had, I still have in my brain, so it hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
It was just a different connotation.
I remember one of the
stories. It took me 11 plus years to make the final version of your tabletop RPG I created. Yeah. It's hard to focus on paperwork.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the stories I remember being assigned in high school was actually not in my creative writing class, it was in the English class, but it pertains to our discussion here tonight. We were covering the Arthurian legend, and we're really going through all of that in depth. So our assignment for the English class was to write a short story that brings another character from like modern day, whatever, just another fictional character into the Arthurian universe. I don't really know why we were assigned that, but I remember thinking I'd have a lot of fun with that. So I brought Conan the Barbarian. So there was some threat to the Knights of the Round Table, and Merlin was able to summon, because he knew he needed a warrior who wasn't bound by nobility and virtues and being chivalrous and all that kind of stuff. So he transported Conan the Barbarian into this realm, and Conan the Barbarian's like hacking and slashing, doing all this kind of stuff of his barbaric ways and just scandalizing King Arthur and all over the place. But that was, I don't have that story either, but I remember having a lot of fun writing it. So it's fun, those little things you remember from the high school days that still stick around in your memory.
I have a lot of fun when I try and come up with stories and ideas. And I've gotten so many different ones. It's not just the superhero one or the sci-fi epic or the sci-fi western. What other ones have I come up with? I had one that was kind of like an idea for like a kind of mystery conspiracy style story.
Oh, cool.
Where, well, there was, I like the idea of like, it was kind of similar to the veins of like a Sentai related story to some extent, but with less super heroics and costumes and more or less just people in street clothes. But I had the idea, it's like, how about I create a mysterious kind of character who escapes from a mysterious facility. Nobody knows what he is. Is he an alien? Is he human? Has he been experimented on? What is the mystery? And yeah, it's common trope. Yep, he has pretty much amnesia, doesn't remember anything, barely remembers his own name, stuff of that nature. And I was like, this could be a fun idea for a story. And like have him run like, and more recently I came up with the idea, it's like, why don't I have him run like a detective agency where he's kind of working on his own thing, but at the same time like solving other people's problems and whatnot, and like gaining like companions and associates along the way, gaining connections to help him like either piece together his history and background or to help him in his journey. And I was like, this sounds like a fun idea. The only problem is I need to actually work on it and actually write a script and finish character design and things of
Yep.
that nature. And it's like, oh boy, oh boy. That one could probably lend itself to a comic book because I don't have a lot of characters for that one. I'm pretty safe on that avenue so long as I don't go too crazy and I restrain myself.
Maybe it would help if you just if you know the whole universe you're envisioning, that's world building and that's great. But maybe if you took the pressure off and just said, first, I'm just going to tell this tiny little story in this universe. Maybe that'd be more
Yeah,
manageable.
that might be a good idea for a start. You know what? Maybe I'll just start off small.
Because a lot of times I know my students too, there's this anxiety about starting a project. Everybody loves to think about what you're going to write. Very few people
Yeah.
like to actually write because that's hard. but but yeah, sometimes it's that getting
I
started that
yeah. I think my problem is that my brain works like all the time. It's like, oh, I have this idea. Oh, I have
Mhm.
that idea. I could write all this down, but my hand doesn't communicate as fast as the rest of my brain.
Yeah.
It's like I could probably sit down and write. If my hand was as fast as my thought process, I could have been a published author at this point.
I remember I was taking a creative writing class one time, and one of my classmates had Asperger's, and he told the class that and everything. But he was talking about his writing process and how he would start a story, but then he would make these diagrams. He would like hang these strings from one end of the room to the other, and he would have like scenes paper or clothespin onto the string, and then he would change the orders around, and he would just do some visual. Writers have all kinds of different methods, whatever works. I mean, there's no
I,
right or wrong way to your own
I
method.
think that's kind of a method that I've used in the past where it's like I had an idea for something and then I would kind of do like I guess it would be kind of like a web method or a
Yeah, sure.
web bubble method where it's just like
Cluster, yeah.
yeah, where I'd write one thing down and then I'd like start like connecting like characters, people, events, things of that nature.
Hmm.
And then eventually I would end up with a kerfuffled mess of a bunch of stuff that this actually mainly happened when I did the superhero stuff. This happened when I tried to do superhero related stuff and I ended up with a mess. I need to create supervillains. Okay, basically I took one of those like a very large pad of paper
Yeah.
that normally I would use for a sketch, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna like do an entire web. I'm gonna like do like ideas for antagonists, characters, all this sort of stuff. And I was just like writing it out, and it ended up to be this large bubbled map full of antagonists, other characters, heroes, and almost no events whatsoever. I'm like, what have I done? What have I done to myself at this point? Dear Lord,
Yeah.
because it's like I want to make supervillains and characters. Oh dear Lord, what sort of hell have I wrought upon myself?
You just need an editor.
I need an editor. I need
There you
someone to
go.
keep me on track. It's not like I can ask my brother to keep me on track because he could barely be on track. He wanted me to help him do a comic. I'm like, okay.
I wish I
Maybe.
could draw. I really envy you people who the art, the artistic abilities and stuff, because there's so many of my stories I'd love to put some sort of
Yeah.
visual age to, but yeah, I stick to the
Well,
prose. I'm a wielder of words.
well, well. If you ever need someone to do a cover, I could probably get away with that.
Awesome. Good to know.
If you're okay with it to look like anime trash, you're covered.
Nice. I'm excited about this sword and sorcery one. It's pretty cool. It's this young priest who's he's been groomed for the priesthood since a child. His father sold him into the priesthood for the social status, but he gets to be 18 years old and decides that he wants to experience more of the world that the priesthood doesn't allow him. So he's looking around at the young women in the courts and stuff, and he ends up going out to this border town, volunteering for this mission to go to this border town of the kingdom where they're more lax about their rules and such, and then all these political coups. It's kind of like Game of Thrones meets Dune, is how I describe it. But it's fun.
Yep.
Lots of buxom, sexy women and powerful sword slinging. But then you've also got the insecure young priest in the middle of it all. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. I think that one of the like I guess the more dark fantasy stuff that a lot of people recommend when it comes to anime and manga is the manga called Berserk that a lot of people really like.
Okay.
That one's, I don't know if that would be of interest to you, but
I don't
it's
know.
one to consider.
Write it down on my list here.
It's far darker, more bloodier and gruesome than most. I guess it would be kind of in the same vein as Hellsing. Now that I think
Okay.
about it, it would be more closer to that kind of stuff. Darker, blood, death, horrible.
I mean, I don't necessarily
things.
gravitate towards that kind of thing, but if there's a mythological strain in there, I'll appreciate it. So
I don't know what mythological connections it makes, but it does have. Well, I mean, it kind of makes its own mythology because there's like mythological monsters, creatures.
Mhm.
The protagonist is inhumanly strong. I don't know why. I think he might be. I don't know. Actually, I don't know why. But Guts seems to be inhuman, considering he wields a sword that's the same size as him.
Yeah.
And that's normally the case with an anime or Japanese in general. It's like, hey, I want to give you a sword that's so unrealistically large that no normal human would dare wield this thing. But I'm going to give it to my main protagonist and make everybody think he's such a badass, considering he can wield it with one hand. Make everybody else feel inferior.
There you go. Nothing measuring or competitive about that.
It's like, are they overcompensating for something?
Yeah, exactly. That was the word I was looking for.
Well, because I think the first time I ever saw that with like a character design was from Final Fantasy VII when they had Cloud, and they give him a sword that's the huge Buster sword. It's like, yeah, this. Are you overcompensating, or are you just so badass that you can carry around a sword that probably weighs over 200 pounds of steel on your back?
Yep.
Of course, you are a JRPG protagonist, so I'm not surprised by anything anymore. It's like you could wield something 5 times that size, and I'd probably be like, yeah, that's just the norm now. I expect it.
I understand.
I kind of like it when they make fantasy weapons that are somewhat ridiculous in nature. It's like, this is not a very smart idea for a weapon choice, but you know what? It looks cool when you use it.
Well, speaking of Hellsing, the police girl, and they designed her weapon. It was like this huge, long, phallic-looking cannon, and she's like, "This is ridiculous," but then she ends up carrying it around anyway.
I think that my favorite impractical weapon that I seen in an anime was from Rurouni Kenshin, which we didn't really talk about it in the stream, but I saw that article before we started. But the Zanbato that I can't remember his name. Gosh darn it! Dang it! Why I never can remember his name. But it was a mercenary who was hired to kill Kenshin, but he wields around a Zanbato, which back in Japan was basically a giant sword that would basically be able to cleave a rider and a man in half.
Oh, wow.
But nobody can wield it. It's got a pole stick that's probably half the size of the human, and then the sword itself that towers over the person. No normal person can pick up that and actually swing it in combat, but this guy can, and it's pretty badass to watch him swing it around while in a sword fight. Unfortunately, he doesn't get to keep it for very long, and it gets broken. But it's like, you know what? I think this is for the best. Then just make him a monk, because he's already pretty much weapon proof. He's already trained his body. He's a monster already. Might as well just say, you know what? Just make him a monk and just make him punch things.
Yeah.
It works. He was actually probably one of my favorite characters in the show.
What's the title again?
That was for Rurouni Kenshin.
Oh, that's right, Rurouni Kenshin. Okay, gotcha.
I like it because it is part of Japanese history. They mix Japanese history and whatnot with a little bit of unrealistic shonen behaviors. Like, this guy is so OP with the sword, no one can see him move half the time. Or he can beat an entire room full of guys with a sword that actually can't even cut through anybody. And what is known as what they call a reverse blade sword, where the blade's on the opposite end, and if he hits you with it, it's all it'll do is probably break a few bones or hurt you severely.
Rabbit got the name with the Hakona anti-tank rifle for the police girl. That was one. If you look up an image of her with Helsing and put that name with the rifle in, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ridiculous weapons are anime par for the course.
yeah, definitely. No, I would. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Meiji, yeah, it's the Meiji era of Japan's
Okay,
bloody revolution. Yeah,
gotcha. No,
that's what it
I see
covers.
Rabbit's comment there. No, I'd love to do a stream with you sometime too. I know it's for me. It's 2:30 where I am, so I'm probably gonna have to wrap things up here in a moment or
Yeah,
two.
I have to too. I should probably eat something and then go to bed because I got some stuff I need.
Lightweight.
No, I have work tomorrow. I need to get up at a decent hour and shower before my brother does because he's got work at noon. So
Gotcha.
I have to get up a little earlier, just a smidge earlier, and get started with that.
I understand. Well, have a happy holiday. I'll talk to you on the line for sure before then.
Probably I will still be there.
Okay, sounds good.
But
yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming in and joining. It was good talking to you all, Rabbit and Mariana. I think you're the two survivors with us here at this point. This looks like 6 people are watching, but I'm sure Big Al's passed out in front of his computer. So,
as are most of them probably.
but
work
good
is
talking.
for the weak.
This was my first live stream ever, so thanks for welcoming me to the live stream world, and definitely check out my channel if you would subscribe, help me get the word out. But it's fun, slowly but surely.
Growing. One day, he will surpass me.
Yeah, I don't know about
and
that.
Then I will be so then I will be so proud.
There you go.
To be quite honest, I don't deserve nearly as many subscribers as I have. I say it all the time. It could be me being humble, but I seriously am like, why are you watching me? I don't script anything. Nothing is planned. It's just
your
me
personality.
It's me
your
randomly
personality.
It's me randomly yelling into a microphone about stupid things that you shouldn't care about. Not nearly as much as your bills.
People like spending time with you.
Yeah. We're here to steal your subscribers. Yes. Please take them. You can have them. Most of them are assholes anyway. I don't want them.
Wow.
I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm not serious, obviously. I love everyone. Everyone is great, except for the few trolls who talk shit.
Oh yeah, there's always those.
They are not the focus of my channel here. I don't care.
Well,
hey, I'm one of his subscribers. I know. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't insult anybody. I was kidding. I'm not serious. Don't leave me. I want you to stay. I need the attention. I'm a very lonely person. I don't get to talk with nerds very often. Without you, I would be very lonely.
God bless the internet.
Yep. But yeah, we're gonna.
I'll catch you at another time, though. But thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hashtag triggered. Thanks, Rabbit. Thanks for that. Anyway, yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll just end here. So good night, everybody.
Good night.